It's
Nick, we're
more
only
so,
like 2 hours and 15 minutes in. We got plenty of time to go through this stuff. I
yeah, I
don't know why
mean,
you're trying to hustle. Welcome to Center Cup. I am Will Neary, not Kyle Musarino, and I'm here with Nick Newmeyer as always. We have a little bit of a different idea for you today. Obviously, the Masters is around the corner. So we wanted to come at you with an episode. We'll actually have two episodes in this sort of series, but the first one in the series will be to, understand the Masters field, specifically the past champions. Like I said, we will have another episode regarding some of the amateur champions that are in the field, the global amateur champions, but there's a lot of past champions that, as younger adults, we may not necessarily be as familiar with. I had a ton of fun diving into some of this information, some of these past masters going back into the 90s with some of the guys that are in the field this year. First, we will jump into a little bit of recent news before we get deep into those characters in Augusta, Georgia. But we'll start with the new full swing trailer that actually dropped today. The new season is slated for, I believe it's mid-April, right, Nick? Around, it was at April 14th, 17th, something like that.
yeah, 17th. So it's really cool trailer. Obviously, it's going to be quite similar to, I believe it was season two of Full Swing, where it really takes you an in-depth access towards the preparation for the Ryder Cup at Bethpage. We saw a lot of Keegan Bradley, a lot of Luke Donald. I think one of the things we saw was just the preparation, but also I think they had cameras at the Ryder Cup, and so I think the funniest excerpt for me was they caught someone calling Shane Lowry a Teletubby on the camera,
Always
and
good.
he subsequently went nuts. And so I think
Yeah.
we're gonna get a lot of we're gonna get a lot of looks at that. We're also, I think, some of the stories they floated as well was Ben Griffin talking about his wins last year and sort of his story is very heartfelt. I know he had gone through some struggles, as he said in the trailer. It's definitely something I'm looking forward to seeing. We're going to talk about Tommy Fleetwood sort of coming up. Nobody really expected him to have the end of the season that he did. He was very candid
Finally get that
about
win.
exactly about how he has never won on the PGA Tour, and it kept slipping away from him. And then the one last big storyline was Rory's win at the Masters, which we will be talking about shortly. But so they're going to
Mhm.
have an episode featuring the Masters told through the lens of Justin Rose. So I hear.
Ooh, I like that. Okay, that's cool. I have two follow-up questions for you because they just popped into my head as you were going through that. One, I'm curious how they approach the Ryder Cup in this season with all of the backlash that Zach Johnson received in following like everything that came out through full swing of that Ryder Cup year. Obviously, a pretty disastrous showing from the U.S. team. Um, and Zach Johnson carried a lot of that blame. We'll also talk a little bit about Zach Johnson in this episode, but I'm curious how they approach that. I guess that's less of a question for you, but then the question I have for you a little bit, and this is a little cynical of me, and I feel a little bad because I love this guy. We've talked a lot about him this year. Should Tommy Fleetwood's win have a little bit of an asterisk because it was a limited field? Should there be? I know it's the best players in golf. I get that, but it was a 30-person field. Like,
See, I will answer your question with a question. I think yeah, yes, it's a win. I think at the end of the day, there were 30 players playing in that field, and he was the best out of those 30
mhm.
players. So I will use that technicality probably a bit later in this episode as well when talking about another controversial champion in a controversial year. But my question is, should he really be the FedEx Cup champion? Like, are we serious?
Yeah, I mean that was part of one of the good things that came out of some of the one of the press conferences Brian Roloff has held is the restructuring of the FedEx Cup playoff because it makes absolutely no sense. Winning one tournament of 30 people should not I know, and it's culminating all your points of the season to get there, and there's several tournaments that lead up to the FedEx Cup finals. But yeah, to win one tournament literally ever and be crowned a FedEx Cup champion. It's almost like winning a Masters without winning a PGA Tour event ever, which somebody did. We'll talk about them in a little bit, but It is a little funny, and you're right. It is a legitimate sanctioned PGA Tour event. It's not like he won the Hero World Challenge or something
I
that's
was
an
just about to
unofficial event.
say.
Not to throw shade at the Hero World Challenge, but it's an official PGA Tour event. So in the books, it goes down as a win with no asterisk, and I will respect that. He has won on the PGA Tour. It's just in my mind, I'm like, there's a. It's not like he won. I don't. It's hard to quantify because, like I said, it's the best players in golf in theory, but it's a smaller field, so. I don't know. I'm sure he'll knock off plenty more so that this argument is completely irrelevant, hopefully. But anyways, I'm really looking forward to the new full swing season. I know we talked off air about how we need to get through this stuff quickly because this is going to be a longer episode, and here we are rambling for 5, 10 minutes, whatever it's been. But I'll let you take a crack at the Augusta National Women's Amateur, Nick, as well. I know we talked about it in our Wednesday episode. I just wanted to give a brief leaderboard update since we've gotten through those first two rounds. Like you mentioned, I think very well on Wednesday, the first two rounds are at the Champions Retreat, and then everybody will play a practice round at Augusta, right? Not just the people who made the cut, and then just the people who make the cut actually play the tournament round on Saturday. I think I have that right. Maybe you'll
Correct.
correct
Yeah.
me,
It,
but
it, it used to be where only the people advancing to make the cut got to play the practice round, which would make sense. But, now they've sort of expanded it where everybody is at least guaranteed one round at Augusta. And I think that's just
I kind of I kind of like that. I mean, I don't know. I kind of think that's fair. I mean, especially because Augusta is like the special treat, obviously, at the end of this tournament. Like it's
right.
nice that everybody gets the practice round, and the very very talented female amateurs that make the cut get to play that real tournament round on Saturday as well. So that's a little extra added bonus, I guess.
Yeah. And so I think it's good just to have that opportunity. It's really nice to see everybody sort of get to enjoy what Augusta is, and it's a chance for us to see Augusta in action before the tournament. Obviously, Saturday's round will be televised on Golf Channel, but enough about the facts. Let's get into who is playing that practice round for fun and who is actually playing it for real. So after 2 days at Champions Retreat, we have Asterix Tally, who does not have Miles Russell on the bag. She leads at 11 under par. Uh, she leads over Maya Ortegren and Maria Jose Marin by one stroke. And the group of three is separated with the next best players in the world, Andrea Rivalta and Avery Weed, excuse me, sitting at 6 under par. So the three, so Tally, Ortegren, and Marin, they've completely run away with this. It is their tournament to lose, basically. And we knew Asterix Tally was the real deal heading into the week, but she's really proved herself now. And then just some of the other good names in the field. We got obviously the world amateur number one, Kiara Romero, and number two, Paula Martin San Pedro, tied at 14th at 4 under par. We got one stroke behind them, number four, Farrah O'Keefe at 3 under par. And there were some names that actually, what? Before I get into who missed the cut, we got to give our props to Northwestern Wildcat Deanna Lee,
Yes,
who
we do.
fired back-to-back rounds of 1 under par and will be playing the weekend at Augusta National. So major props to Deanna and go Cats. And so moving on to some of the players that didn't miss the cut. So we have the reigning U.S. Women's Amateur Champion and Stanford superstar Mega Gane is the highest ranked player at sixth in the World Amateur Golf rankings to miss the cut. She last year, I believe she set the course record, or she set the record opening score on day one of the Champions Retreat. Let me just make sure I have that correct. Yes, so she
Yeah.
set the Champions Retreat scoring record with a 63 in her first round last year. Instead, now she shot a 77 in her first round this year and then matched it with a 74 in her next round. She is going home early. She'll be joined by Ella Galitsky, who finished tied for fourth last year, but bogeyed her final hole to miss the cut by one stroke. That sucks. That
Bogeying
is
a par five too. Like
that
that
just
hurts a
stings
lot.
so much. That you just
Yeah.
absolutely hate to see that. And
I'm
so
curious, Nick. I'll steal a game from our friends at No Laying Up. they do this a lot, and I'm by no means I'm taking credit for it, but I'm curious. This is how far back is too far back, especially with you've got Astrid Tally, Ortengren, and Maria Jose Marin at 11 under and 10 under, and then everybody else is four shots back of them. Is there anybody in like, do we think anybody that's at 6 under? I mean, I have to think there's some variability, right? Going to Augusta from Champions Retreat, very different course, obviously, presumably a harder test, although I can't say I'm particularly familiar with Champions Retreat and its level of play or whatever. But is there a chance that all three of those three women at the top kind of fall back to the field or somebody catches them, or is it I mean, it's only a one round final, right? Like it's just one round at Augusta. So is there really any chance for people to have a lot of drama outside of those three on Saturday, or is it pretty set, you think?
I personally don't think so. I think
Yeah.
with Augusta, obviously there's the variability of Augusta, and obviously it's going to be a challenge for some players, but I certainly think this is going to lead to I don't think anybody's going to go basically what I'm trying to say is I don't think anybody's going to go massively low last year or
Right.
this year. So I have the leaderboard from last year, and the lowest score belongs ironically to uh Ilya Galitsky at she fired a 66 in her final round. It was the low round of the day. Um, I personally don't think there's going to be a lot of variability at that. So basically, the long-winded answer to your question is I don't believe there is going to be much variability at the top, just because this tournament often lends itself to experience. I
Hmm.
guess it didn't necessarily work out for Megagane. I think she was making her sixth career start at ANWA,
Wow.
and so I guess that experience, didn't come in her favor there. But Asterisk Tally, she finished second in at Augusta National last year. Um, I do not see her relenting this lead. And if she does, I
Yeah.
think it's either going to be Maya Tigran or Maria Jose Marin.
Right.
I don't think anybody's coming from four back to.
Right. And relying on all three of them to fall back to the field is too long of a stretch. So with that, that's a good recap. We also obviously, like Nick said, you'll be able to catch that live on Golf Channel, I believe, or maybe NBC. I'll have to double check. I believe it was actually NBC in my notes from before, um, for the Saturday at Augusta final for that. And then the only other real news that is a little bit more pertaining to our conversation today is that both Phil Mickelson and Tiger Woods have withdrawn from the Masters officially. There's been a little bit more news that has come out about the Tiger situation, and obviously we've talked exhaustively about that. I won't go into too much detail, as we know he is checking himself into a treatment rehabilitation facility. I think the exact one is unclear, so I'm hesitant to really ascribe it one of either definition, honestly. But he is checking himself into treatment in some form or fashion to get some help, which is obviously necessary considering everything that happened. He has formally said that he will not be, or the PGA Tour at least has formally said that he will not be representing the U.S. team as the captain of the Ryder Cup in Ireland. Again, that writing was on the wall, but the official statement is out there now. We've had a couple conversations about who we think should fill those shoes, and that's a conversation for a later date that we won't have right now. There was some, extra footage quotes that came out where Tiger had told the deputy that had just been talking to the president during the arrest, which is when anyone else says that, I'm like, that's crazy. It's probably true. He was probably on the phone with the president. Like, obviously, he's married to somebody they're engaged. They're fiancés now, right? To
I
Trump's ex-wife.
is it fiance? I thought they were just
Are they
dating.
just dating? Okay, maybe
That's
they're just dating,
I
but
don't think they're engaged just yet. I think the funny
okay,
thing about that was that if you listen further to what Tiger was saying, I think his exact words were he was very apologetic. So everybody seems to think that Trump was actually calling Tiger to apologize for saying on Fox News the night before that Tiger won't be playing in the Masters.
right.
And
Yeah.
Tiger said that he was looking at his phone. I think the the exact quote was, I went down to look at my phone and then boom.
And then boom, and then all of a sudden there's a pressure washing truck just right in my face. Don't know where it came from. Those things are pretty
Oh.
small. They're easy to miss. I don't blame Tiger.
Yeah.
Just kidding. I do blame Tiger. He should not be doing that. And then obviously Phil Mickelson also withdrew due to some family issues. Again, don't want to try to opine on that further. I don't think we have any further detail. Like you said off air, Nick, I think it's likely what has caused him to miss a lot of live golf events as well. So don't want to go too deep into that. But with that, it's probably about time that we get into the actual segment that we're here for.
Mhm.
The
If I can give you, not to
Masters.
interrupt you, if I can just give
Yes.
you one
No,
more
no,
little
no, please
tidbit
do.
and then we'll close off, just because I saw this and I think it is so wild. It is the first time since 1994 that the Masters tournament will not feature one of Tiger Woods or Phil Mickelson.
That is pretty crazy. That's honestly especially crazy considering how young they were in 1994.
Right.
Um, I mean, what is that? That's 32 years. Yeah. I mean, hopefully we get, another run of 5 to 8 years here where we get them signed up for a handful more before all's said and done for their careers at the Masters. But yeah, on that note, just to clarify a little bit and put a big blinking disclaimer up here about this segment, I am in no way trying to reflect this as a projection of how they're going to perform. I'm going to do my best not to forecast that at all. I really want to just get us familiar with these players more than anything about specifically the Masters that they won, whether that be one or many. And honestly, both Tiger and Phil being out of this exercise helped the timeline a lot because they both carry so many masters that it would have been quite some time to go through, especially Tiger's 2019 win, obviously, and his 1997 win as well. So there would have been a lot to cover. There still is a lot to cover, but that's the disclaimer. I'm not trying to delve too deep into, how they're going to do. I also want to do my best to not linger too much on the most recent winners. Obviously, we're pretty familiar with Rory McIlroy and Scotty Scheffler and John Rahm. We've talked about them exhaustively on this podcast and off this podcast, for years now. So in some cases, decades now, actually, which is crazy to say about Rory McIlroy. But I would like to do my best to breeze through those a little bit, and we'll have some chit chat here and there. But we separated these into some categories. So the first category we've got here is actually just the last five Masters tournaments, like of these stalwart PGA Tour current figures that are still around. Obviously, that starts with Rory McIlroy. Going through this exercise really put in perspective for me how special last year's Masters was. I think, like, I knew obviously, like, but you watch in the moment, you're like, oh my God, that Masters was incredible. Like, that was so fantastic. I can't believe that that we did that. That, like, this was the tournament that we had, and that it was this dramatic, and then we had that playoff. And I think in the moment I was trying to sense check myself and be like, okay, like, no, it's fine. It's like, whatever. Like, I'm getting ahead of my skis, whatever. But then looking back, like, man, it really was one of the best. We don't need to go shot by shot, but two shots in particular, Rory's hook first on 13 on that par five, Rory lays up to perfect position with the lead and just like a flip wedge pushes it right into the creek for literally no reason at all. Like played it safe and then just must have just brain cramp, pressure gets to him, whatever you want to call it, goes in the water, double bogey. And then 2 holes later on 15 hits what is remembered as probably one of the greatest shots in recent Masters history, right? Like the 7-iron from God knows how far. Yeah, feel free to interrupt
That's
me, but
totally, I mean, I think I remember watching that day, and it's funny, I was supposed to go and hang out with some friends. I was actually supposed to cook for them that day. And so I had like all my stuff ready to go. I was supposed to go over there. I see the double bogey. I'm like, "Oh my God, like Rory's gonna pull a Rory. Like this is going to
I know.
happen today." And then I was like getting ready to go, and then I see the hook shot on 15, and I called them. I'm like, I'm going to be late. I'm staying and watching this. Like
It
that
was
was, you could not have scripted a better finish. And obviously Justin Rose forcing the playoff, and then obviously wasn't able to win it in the playoff, but just seeing the pair of them go at it and just you could say I've been critical of Rory McIlroy over the years. I think when when he's playing well, he's really easy to root for. When he's not, he's really easy to root
Yeah.
against. Like when he was on his live soapbox and was really just kind of like the spokesperson, like it got really petty and it was just really annoying. Like I'm not gonna, I'll say it. It was really annoying. But
Yeah.
in that moment, seeing him just like fall to his knees on the 18th green, you could not have scripted a better moment. And that was just amazing.
No, and there was a couple things that stood out. I mean, we talked about the hook 7 iron. I think what stood out to that about me, it's what's funny about that, at least to me, is that when they show it on the broadcast, he's like 200 and something yards out, and I know how far Rory hits the ball, and I'm still like, that's way too far to try to hit a 7 iron. What are we doing? Hits this massive hook. There's water short, lands just over the water, trickles out to like 5 feet. One of the most phenomenal shots I've ever seen. Misses the eagle putt because
Yeah, I was
why
gonna
would
say,
you
did
make
he
that
miss
eagle
the
putt?
putt?
Like he missed the eagle putt. It's a birdie. Luckily he wins because there's a shot later on that honestly I didn't really realize the stakes. And it's not lost in history, but in a way it's lost in history. That's a little tease, but what was also lost in history to me, at least, I forgot that Justin Rose made two bogeys in those final 8 holes. I remember it as just birdie, 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 birdie. But in his final 8 holes, he made six birdies and two bogeys.
Mhm.
He could have won. I mean, and one of them, I believe, was a pretty short missed putt, maybe on 17. I think he missed a
Yeah,
shorty.
I remember that.
Like
Yeah.
he could have won this tournament. Obviously, it would have been a fantastic, fantastic comeback, one of the best of all time. Um, but an incredible, incredible Masters, and obviously Jim Nance's call. McIlroy has his masterpiece, another hit, just batting 1,000. I mean, when is he not really? But
Friend of the
I,
podcast, Jim Nance.
yeah, you know what? We can say that and not be that crazy, right? It's not technically a lie.
He said hello,
Um,
friends, and was talking directly to us. What more proof
it's
do you
true.
need?
I don't think there's any more proof that you could possibly have, frankly. God, I wish I had a recording of that, but should have been wearing those meta glasses when we met him,
Oh my
just like
gosh.
live recording. But yeah,
That'll be a
and
story
then
for another time. I feel like we have not like truly debriefed
no,
that moment on
we
this
really didn't.
podcast,
We
but
didn't really dive too deep into some of that. That is a good call. We should definitely do that in a quieter week. We'll get into our Jim Nance
yeah.
back and forths. And then the last piece I'm going to do for each of these is just the where are they now? This part, especially, we know for Rory McIlroy, we know where he is. He tweets his back at the Arnold Palmer. His only start since then has been a Players Championship T46, where he shot even par, showed nothing special. I think this whole year we've kind of seen him have too many big mistakes. The funny part is, like we just talked about, he had those same big mistakes at the Masters and pulled off enough miracles to get away with them. I don't think that's happening again. If he makes those mistakes, he won't pull off the miracles anymore. But like I said, not going to delve too deep into that. And we know where Rory is, so I'm not gonna waste our time there. The next guy who honestly what shocked me about Scotty Scheffler, who obviously won in 2024, is how incredibly his resume stacks up against everybody that's on this list. Like, I mean, obviously we don't have Tiger and Phil on this list anymore. We don't have Jack's not like Jack Nicklaus isn't playing here. Even Nick Faldo, who's got the six majors, isn't playing here. Um, but nonetheless, like just I wrote out, all the accolades that you guys have. So for Scotty, it's four-time major champion, obviously an Open, a PGA Championship, and two Masters, two times Player Champion, 14 times PGA Tour, three times on the Ryder Cup, two times on the President's Cup, one Olympic gold medal, one FedEx Cup championship, and one U.S. Junior Am. And like, if you just match that up with the other, I think we have 18 guys on this list. If you match that up, the only guys like really that you can say have a better resume than that, I mean, it's Rory because Rory's got the career Grand Slam. That's almost it. I think that might be it. I like who else on like I don't think anybody else other than Rory that is actively playing in this current Masters. I mean, you can make a Jordan Spieth argument because of the two U.S. Junior Ams, the five Ryder Cups, the four Presidents Cups. I would hear an argument for that. That's the only VJ. I would hear a VJ argument.
Actually, yeah,
VJ's
yeah,
got a better resume,
yeah.
less majors, but
VJ
the
works.
31 PGA Tour wins. Um, but it's my point being, it's only really been 4.5 years of dominance out of Scotty Scheffler. Obviously, the 2022 Masters and the tournaments leading up to it were the start of this peak that we've seen. and he's built an incredible. I don't think I really registered just how outrageous his resume has gotten this early in his career. Obviously, we'll get to his where are they now is that it's been God knows where we are right now. Honestly, I have no clue. Like, I don't know what's going on in the brain of Scotty Scheffler. I'm sure he's spending time with his family, with the new child and everything. By the way, just looking at his data golf page again, it's like hasn't finished outside the top 25 and has a win. And like, but
Right. There's no reason for any reason to concern. I think with Augusta always brings that, and this argument's going to come in handy with, another golfer from Texas a little bit later, but I think Augusta always rewards its past champions. It doesn't matter what, and that's why you had mentioned, Rory's making silly mistakes. I'm not entirely worried about him either. I think everybody's going to be making those mistakes at Augusta, and I think it's just if you have the experience to play Augusta, I think it definitely rewards people who have played it before, and I think it doesn't matter. I forget who said it. It was somebody on CBS was saying it was about Spieth actually, and he said that it Augusta truly does not matter the form you're coming into ahead of the Masters. And so
yeah,
I don't know what to expect about Scotty. I just think it's so funny that and when he won his first Masters, this was obviously before he sort of went. It was sort of the precursor to the like massive
hmm
dominant phase that he went on. He four putted on the 72nd
yep,
hole. That like to me,
yeah,
that is still and it honestly ended up being a bit with Rory and Morikawa's bunker shots or yeah, that's right. They're bunkers. They're not the sand traps. That's right. This week we gotta
they're
play by
bunkers.
we gotta play by Augusta rules here. Those shots made it a lot closer than it could have and should have been with that four
Yeah,
putt. And so like
100%.
obviously it wasn't like he is now where he's, Scotty Scheffler and he's the world number one and he's just this amazing like, oh, look at me, I'm Scotty Scheffler. I can four putt and still win the Masters. Like he hadn't reached that level of swagger yet, which
Yeah,
honestly saying Scotty Scheffler and swagger in the same sentence just feels wrong.
yeah,
But to me, that's just such a funny precursor to his massive run is that he four putted on one of the most holy greens in existence.
yeah. And that was the easier of his two Masters by a pretty good margin. Not and actually, the note I have here is that he hasn't really won an entertaining Masters or one that was truly entertaining down to the end of it. I mean, in 2022, like you mentioned, he held a 5-shot lead after 2 rounds. He had 3-shot victory with a four putt on the 72nd. In 2024, he only had a one stroke lead over Colin Morikawa, and that one I remember quite well, and it was exciting for a moment. Scotty made a bogey. There was a three-way tie between him and Morikawa and Oberg, but then he immediately birdied 8, 9, and 10. His lead was two, and it was over. And then
Right.
obviously it was more over when I was it Morikawa that found the water on 11. One of the two guys found water on 11. They both kind of faded, and it was Scotty's tournament to lose. Well, yeah. So Morikawa double bogeyed nine and not holes 9 and 11, and Oberg double bogeyed 11. So there you go. They both kind of shot themselves in the foot there, and it was Scotty's tournament. So we haven't actually seen him close a Masters under real heat, but that's not to say that I don't think he could. He absolutely
Right.
could. But we can jump ahead to another familiar face. Also, by the way, the last four tournaments, just heavy hitters. Rory McIlroy, Scotty Scheffler, and John Rahm won the last four Masters. So John Rahm won in 2023, as we mentioned. He's also won the 2021 U.S. Open, among many other things. Especially worth noting the three Live Golf titles that he has taken home. Very important. Just stack right up there with the Masters, pretty much. Probably the same trophy case. But the 2023 Masters was really just him and Brooks Koepka. It was a
Yeah.
live golf duel on Augusta soil. And Brooks shot 65, 67 to open the tournament. Rahm was right behind him, 65, 69, and nobody else really even took a crack at him. Rahm was 2 shots back of Brooks on Sunday. That flipped to Rahm's favor by the end of the front nine. Brooks had shot three over on the front, which unfortunate. Um, and then, Rahm shot a comfortable three under 69. It ended up being a 4-shot victory, kind of like what you talked about with Scott. Like this was kind of a trend that I feel this is unfair a little bit, and it feels stupid to say this on the wake of the Masters we got last year. There have been a handful of Masters, and maybe this is just a handful of golf tournaments, really, and how they all end up playing out, where a lot of the drama's on the front nine on Sunday. Like that's kind of
Hmm.
where the heat is, that's where the turns are. And then by the time you get to those 13, 14, 15 holes, 16, where there's a lot of opportunity for sway. There's just not that much drama going on. But we don't need to dwell too much on John Rahm unless you have anything major to say. We all know what's going on with his move to Live. He's actually on a really good run of play so far and Live on in 2026. One win, three solo seconds, and a fifth. So that's all pretty good.
Yeah, I
But
think with John Rahm, I think we're finally like what 4+ years later, I think we're finally starting to see the golfer that we were supposed to be getting, which like we all thought John Rahm was going to dominate Live, and to an extent he really hasn't. And it's
no,
really been sort of a disappointing. I know he's won like team championships and like and on the team game he's succeeded, but in terms of like the caliber of the player he was when he left to join Live, to only have three Live wins to his name is almost surprising. Like I,
it's
I feel
definitely
like
surprising.
I feel like we thought he was gonna like, and I think we were robbed that when Scotty was, and I've said this before on the podcast too. I think when Scotty was at his peak, we were robbed of seeing him have any real contender. Like
Yeah.
Tiger had Phil, he had
Hmm.
VJ, he had so many different people. To an extent, he had Rory. Like there were so many like rivals of Tiger. Whereas for the first like 4 or 5 months of Scotty's dominance, he was going toe to toe. I think if going and looking at the list of winners, it was like Scotty, Rahm, Scotty, Rahm. Like it was just back to back to back to back. They were
Hmm.
just toe to toe. And then Rahm left, and then nobody really filled that void. And so I don't
Yeah,
know.
and we had pure unmitigated Scotty with absolutely like nothing to stop him for quite some
Exactly.
time, or nothing consistent to stand in his way for a really long time. Which brings us to 2021, which is maybe the most of these past 5 years, certainly. The only slightest bit inkling of a random winner that we have is Hideki Matsuyama in 2021 over the last 5 years. Obviously, this is the only major champion, his only major championship. He is the only person in the last 5 years to just have that one major championship. He's won 10 times on the PGA Tour. I wouldn't call him like a totally out of left field major winner. I also think he fits Augusta quite well. So I don't think anybody was entirely shocked when he took the lead and was able to hold it. Very much unlike some tournaments that we'll talk about in a minute. But yeah, it was another not particularly fascinating Masters, to be honest with you. Hideki, uh, it was highlighted by a 65 on Saturday. Like that was it was the best round of the day by 3 strokes, which is outrageous. Um, but it gave him a 4 shot lead heading into Sunday. The chasers were Will Zalatoris, which sneak peek on when we're recording right now. Will Zalatoris is one back of the lead at the Valero Texas Open, unless there was a couple guys at 600 that might have jumped to seven. I'm not sure,
Yeah,
but
I don't think
within
anybody when I
yeah,
last looked I didn't see anybody at seven, but
so Will Zalatoris could get himself into this Masters field with a win, and that would make me very, very happy and very. I love when Will Zalatoris is playing major championship golf. But anyways, Hideki was in front of Will Zalatoris, Andrew Shoffley, Mark Leishman, and Justin Rose, whose name pops up a lot during this exercise. You know who else pops up a lot? Jordan Spieth. Um,
yes, he does.
but yeah, he brought that 4 shot lead into Sunday. It was very briefly close when Zalatoris went birdie on one and two, but that it did not last. Hideki ended up, uh, yeah, he brought the lead back up to three, and he won it going away. It was not particularly challenging. Also, the that image, I think, to take a totally random route at this, the image of Hideki's caddy bowing to Augusta National on the 72nd green after they walk away with the green jacket, one of the coolest images in golf, I think, just like really captures I'm trying not to get too far away from the golf and to get too like emotionally oriented right now, but one of them like really captures like the spirituality aspect of golf about like hitting a little ball in the woods towards golf holes. Um I just thought that that image is really cool, and that's always stuck with me. And like the appreciation and the approach that Hideki and his caddy have to golf, and how different like that image, how that kind of changed my mindset about golf a little bit. It's like, oh, like how lucky we are to hit a little white ball around a beautiful green golf course in the woods.
Absolutely, yeah. I think it's funny you mentioned that. Brendan Quinn of The Athletic just put out a very thorough and in-depth article about that moment, which if you haven't read it, you should definitely check that out.
I have
Um,
not, and I will.
I think what really encapsulated that is that when people see Hideki, they see this like just really like serious guy. They see the guy that throws the clubs. They see
Hmm.
the one-handed finishes on darts,
Yep.
and he really like. I don't think he's someone that people don't like, but I don't think he's someone that people like either. I think he's someone that at least early, at least before the
No,
Masters win.
I think that's a fair statement. I think even now you could say that people, I think people appreciate Hideki and his game, but I don't think people, if somebody were to say like especially in the United States, I think in Japan this is a very, very different conversation. He has
Absolutely.
an incredible following in Japan. I mean, any tournament you go to that Hideki's playing in, there will be literally hundreds, if not thousands, of fans that are like decked out in Hideki gear, following Hideki
Mhm.
exclusively. So he carries a lot of weight there. I do agree 100% though that he is appreciated in the United States. He is not like you'd be hard pressed to find somebody like the way that I would really root for like Cam Young and Will Zalatoris. Like you would be hard pressed to find people that like blindly root for Hideki
Mhm.
in the United States. I
I
think that's
agree.
a very
I,
true.
I think like what really made that moment special to me is that, that's where we really saw like obviously in Japan, it is a culture of just total respect.
Hmm.
And we've often talked about, and if not we, it's definitely been talked about over just years about just the history of Augusta and just paying respects to the course. That's something that's been, whether you're pissing in Ray's Creek
Oof.
or not. There's Sir, which he's not playing this week, right?
No, no,
That
no. I
it,
mean,
that
he's on
idiot.
live.
Oh,
No, no,
thank
no.
God. Okay.
Imagine like peeing in Ray's Creek and then somebody asking you about it and being like, "Yeah, I would do it again." You when
And
you're
end of discussion. We're
yeah,
not doing that.
that would be too long
Um,
a tangent.
yeah. And so anyway, back to what I'm trying to say is like we talk about just respecting the course, and that, or maybe that's just a conversation of any of just respecting the game. And maybe that's, not throwing a tantrum when you hit a bad shot, being nice to your playing partner, or like, picking up the flag sticks, just the simple little things of respect that make you like a good person around the golf course. But then to do what his caddy did and quite literally bow to the course, to me, that was the ultimate sign of respect that we don't really see in this game. And I just thought it was an incredibly just heartwarming moment.
Absolutely. I mean, yeah, one of my favorite images, and I think one of the most widely shared images, I'm sure, in recent Masters history.
You saw that
Among
everywhere.
yeah, that with the McIlroy on his knees. That was the 2021 version of McIlroy on his knees, just like
Exactly.
on like bent back, thanking the gods that he was able to roll that putt in on his second chance there. Um, we can do a quick where are they now? Hideki started the season hotter than I realized, I think. Had four straight top 13 finishes, had one T8 finish at a signature event at AT&T, but has since not been back inside the top 25 in his last three starts, all of them at signatures slash the players. So we'll see what kind of he's not carrying a ton of momentum in, but like you said, that might not matter. Might not matter that
Right.
much at all. To jump into our second category here, our second bucket of guys, and we're going to stop going chronologically for a second here. And we're going to go through not randomly, but in these buckets. So this bucket is titled Still Kicking. And this might be one of the guys we spend a little bit more time on because it is a certain somebody's favorite golfer in the world. It is Jordan Spieth, who obviously won his Masters in 2015, he is, as we know, a three-time major champion: 2017 Open, 2015 US Open, 2015 Masters, along with surprisingly only 10 other PGA Tour wins. But he's also a FedEx Cup champion, two times US Junior Am champion, which I'm not sure I knew actually. So kudos to Jordan Spieth for that. Um, I'll do a little bit, but Nick, I'm going to let you run with this for the most part because I know this probably lives in your memory as like, sitting on a pedestal somewhere in the back of your brain. It really was a masterpiece at Augusta. I mean, there's a note I have here, and we'll build up to it a little bit, or we'll back up from it, I guess, to talk about his tournament. This is and should be in the record books as the lowest score at Augusta. Dustin Johnson's COVID 20 under par should not count. I want that, there should at very least be an asterisk in there. Jordan Spieth needs a lot more credit than for the 18 under than I think Dustin Johnson deserves for his 20. With that, Nick, I'll cede this to you to let you yap a little bit about this beautiful, beautiful 2015 Masters tournament.
Yeah, we'll definitely get to the DJ. I know I definitely foreshadowed that a little bit as well. Fun fact, I was not into golf when I don't even think I was playing golf yet when this Masters happened. If you want to know,
Are you
like,
like 12?
yeah, because it was 2015. Yeah,
Maybe
I was
12.
probably
So.
like 12, 13, maybe 11, which is crazy to think about. But I think just real quick before I get into this, it was actually to answer your question, what got me into Spieth was the 2021 Waste Management when he made
Mm,
that Saturday, it was like a Saturday 63 or something like that.
yeah,
And that was like I was aware of who he was before then, but like just seeing that and like watching that was like this guy's freaking amazing. And so anyway, getting back to 2015 where I
good
was
memory. It
not
was a
watching,
Saturday 61 at the Waste Management Phoenix Open in 2021. Good work.
it
Just
was
had
yeah,
to sense
that
check you and you sniped it.
yeah, that was okay, so it was a 61, not a 63, but point still stands.
Point
So
still
anyway,
stands.
I was not watching in 2015, but it's something that, I go back and look at and just am still marveling over it. I think so you opened, with a 64, um, best round in the field by 3 strokes, 66 the next day, also the low round, sensing a bit of a pattern here. Taking a 5-shot lead into the weekend is incredible to me. Um, this was absolutely his tournament. He had a 4-shot lead after Saturday, and this was definitely one of the all-time great Masters. He was still so young when he did it. Was he the youngest player to win, or is that still Tiger?
That's a good question. I think it might be Spieth now. Actually, let me check.
Because
Give
this
me
is
two
close. I know
seconds.
that.
It definitely is very close. He was what, 21 when he won it?
Right.
22?
Yeah.
Tiger is the youngest, 21 years, 3 months, and 14 days. Next is Jordan Spieth, who is 21 years and 259 days. So Tiger got him by 155 days.
Okay. Got it. And so this is where, obviously Jordan has had some great results. I think outside of maybe Tiger or Phil, the lowest scoring average at Augusta belongs to Jordan Spieth. And it's something that you wouldn't necessarily expect. It's something that you wouldn't but even during, so like we obviously, we'll maybe talk into the collapse when we get to Danny Willett, or you can, and I'll bang my head into the wall
Yeah,
while
I
you
was gonna
do
say
it.
you can just mute
But
me.
um the thing with Jordan is, well, first off, like, just quick disclaimer, that was not the start of the collapse of Spieth, by the way. Like, he won a freaking major after
Yeah,
that. Like, to anybody that says that that's where it all went wrong just doesn't know what they're talking about. But Jordan has
it's
had
fine.
so
Yeah,
many,
we'll get there. Sorry, I'll
yeah.
hold off on
Well,
that piece until we get there.
so he has 6 top 4 finishes at Augusta. A lot of those actually came during the winless route or during the winless drought. Like I think 2023, he kind of came out of nowhere and like made a bit of a run, got to the first page of the leaderboard a little bit.
Hmm.
2020, 2021, I thought he had a chance to win. I think he was my pick to win in 2021. That would have just been absolutely poetic. But 2022 he missed the cut, which was interesting.
He
But
went T3 cut, T4 cut between
right.
2021 and 2024.
And so I ended up winning the RBC the week after, so maybe it was just a
Yeah.
fluke. But no, there's so many good results that came even when his game wasn't at its overall greatest that, we look at where Jordan has been at this year, and, maybe I've been a bit of a homer, but I think just looking at the results, I think it's very clear that the game has been trending upward. I'm going to pretend that he didn't three putt from 8 feet a
Oh,
mere 3 hours before we hit record on
if
this
that,
episode.
yeah.
But so after that, it's pretty hard to gauge where he's at right now. But I think the one thing you mentioned that when we were talking about asterisk tally and whether or not she can keep the lead is that everybody is going to be making mistakes at Augusta. It is a course that will chew you up and spit you out. And so to me, it's not about who is making those mistakes, it's how you get out of those mistakes. And I think what makes Jordan succeed so much at Augusta is the short game, it is the recovery, it's just the overall wizardry that he's been known for. And so I think that is what really separates him from the crowd of that's why he's been so good is that he's able to recover from those mistakes in ways that other people can't. So I know this isn't a preview pod. I know we're saving that for next week, but when it comes to who I think can succeed, it doesn't matter how he's playing, regardless of his form heading into the week. Anybody who doesn't have Jordan Spieth in their top five just doesn't know ball.
Doesn't know ball. And I was just looking at it. I mean, it's got to be the best three tournament start to a master. Probably you could say that for his first five starts, but certainly his first three starts, he goes T2, win T2 at the Masters. And off the top of my head, I was trying to think of guys who have had even comparably good starts. I mean, the only one that came to mind, frankly, was we already talked about was Will Zalatoris, who went second, solo second, T6, T9 in his first three starts. Even Tiger Woods went T41 and missed cut, given he was 19 years old, but so was Jordan Spieth. So we won't delve too deep into that, but it's got to be the greatest start of all time to a Masters career, almost certainly. And are we comfortable moving on from Jordan, or do we want to? We'll
If
get
we
back to
have
him.
to. No,
We'll
we don't
get
have to get
back to
back to
him.
him. We don't have to.
Next up will be Adam Scott, still in this still kicking category. It's meant for guys who are kind of still moving around, aren't the more recent ones, have some of these older wins, but are still doing stuff. And the third guy maybe doesn't quite fit this category, but I squeezed him in. But Adam Scott is our second guy who won in 2013. Like we talked about with Hideki, this is Adam Scott's only major victory. Kind of a similar profile to Hideki, honestly. Also, has only 13 PGA Tour victories outside of that major, and he does have a Players Championship as well from 2004, as well as 11 Presidents Cup appearances. This was really like a consistency Masters. He's in the minority of winners that where none of his rounds were the low round of the day, like on any day throughout the four rounds of the tournament. And he did not hold the lead after any round except the final one, which is another
All
facet
that
of that kind
matters.
of tournament. Yeah, exactly. That's the only round that matters. And it shows, like you said, Augusta is a course of volatility, and it's rare that you get these very I mean, we just talked about it with Jordan Spieth in 2015. That was a non-volatile Masters win to the nth degree, where he was also shooting low rounds of the day. This was just a non-volatile, very, very steady Masters. And he, like I said, didn't hold the lead after any round except the final one. And he entered that final round one shot back of Angel Cabrera and Brandt Snedeker, President's Cup captain, go USA, and shot his third 69 of the Masters to overtake Snedeker, who went +3 with a 75. Ended up in a playoff with Angel Cabrera, who obviously shot a 70, one shot worse than Adam Scott. Scott went par birdie on 18 and 10 in that playoff. Obviously, Angel Cabrera went par par. So Scott walked away with the green jacket. I'm not sure where what you would call this in terms of likelihood, like prior to the Masters. I should have checked out what the odds were going into it because, like you said in about 2015, Nick, like I wasn't, I was 13 years old. I'm sure I watched a couple hours of this tournament because my dad loves golf and it was probably on TV. And I was probably sitting next to him, but I don't remember it enough to remember how much of a deal it was that Adam Scott won. But like I said, he won the Players in 2004. He was in the President's Cup in 2003, 5, 7, 9, 11. So he was around. We knew about Adam Scott
Yeah.
well before he won this Masters tournament. Wow, huge bolt of lightning just
Yeah,
came out. But
I saw it's like I'm like staring. I could see my bathroom in the corner of my eye. I have the mirror is facing the window, and I just saw like a
oh
massive flash right
yeah,
there. Holy shit.
for anybody listening, we've got some lightning going on in Chicago right now. If that wasn't clear. Um, but yeah, he's actually yeah, he's playing pretty solid, kind of to keep talking about consistency. He's playing pretty consistent golf in 2026, highlighted by his solo fourth at the Genesis. Hasn't missed a cut yet this year. Um, yeah, this is kind of boring is the wrong word for any major victory. This wasn't one where there was a blow up. This wasn't one where there was significant drama. This was steady, steady golf that got him into a playoff, and he managed to make that birdie on the 10th, the second playoff hole, to get the win. So this is one that we can kind of fly through unless you want to harp on Adam Scott a little bit.
I
Broom
mean,
putter innovator.
I just
You want
think,
to,
you gotta, when you think of Adam Scott nowadays, you think of the beige cardigan
you do.
is,
We
I
gotta
th
stop with cardigans, man. Billy Horschel brings out that cardigan sometimes. I am not a fan.
yeah, I'm
There was
not
one
either.
specific fit. God, I gotta find it. This isn't gonna be cool because nobody that's listening can see what I'm looking up. But
I
there's a
could edit it
specific
in there.
fit. If you're looking it up, there's a Billy Horschel fit cardigan Open Championship that he wore, I think, in 2024 or 2025 at the Open Championship. Yeah, I mean, it came up so quickly. It's a gray cardigan with like a low V and
Ooh,
four. It's a lot. It just like can't be comfortable to golf in. I refuse to believe that anything with buttons is
yeah,
comfortable
I don't know.
for
But
golf. But
anyway, the point I was trying to make was that
you weren't
there
trying to make
is
a point about
there
Billy
is
Horschel's cardigan.
there is nobody better suited for a, and I promise you I mean this as a compliment. This is going to sound so backhanded, but I promise you this is a compliment. There is nobody more suited to be wearing beige than Adam Scott because he is the color beige.
Yeah.
He's boring. He is, he's not someone that everybody talks about. He's not someone that really interests a lot of people.
No, but he's
But
boring parentheses complimentary. He's like
right.
you can be boring and make a hell of a lot of money if you're boring the way Adam Scott is boring, you know?
But he's there. That's, it's every, like you
Yeah.
mentioned, he hasn't missed a cut this year. If you look at, where he's at, like he is always, you'll look at the leaderboard and be like, "Oh, but there he is." Like
Yep.
you're gonna think much of it, but he's always there.
Yep. Always. And I mean, God, just like really good at approach play. It's like I
I mean
just
that
popped open his daily
swing is
golf page.
just
There's
so
so much
beautiful
green.
still. Like that is the most
Yeah.
beautiful swing
How
out
old
there.
is Adam Scott right now? He's
Gotta be
45 years of
40s,
age.
yeah.
He's
Okay, yeah, that's what I was
45.
gonna
Yeah.
say.
He's uh he's getting up there, but still playing the same golf that got him a Masters victory in 2013, some 13 years ago.
Exactly.
So next up is one of the guys we shouted out as maybe having, or is definitely he's the one probably who definitely has a one of two who definitely has a better career than Scotty Scheffler resume wise. Three-time major, 2004 PGA, 2000 Masters, which we are about to talk about, and the 1998 PGA Championship. We talked a little bit about VJ Singh early in the year. Obviously, he actually made a start on the PGA Tour this year. He's obviously he won in 2000, and I hesitate to say his exact age now and get it wrong, but he is exactly 63 years and 1 month old.
Mhm.
But he used the money list exemption to actually be able to play a PGA Tour schedule. And there was a lot of talk early in the year about whether or not he was going to really exploit that or not. And he ended up just playing the Sony Open. He made the cut. Good for him. Finished T40 and has played solidly on the Champions Tour, but he won in 2000. It's 26 years since his Masters victory, which was one of the not lower, higher scoring, harder Masters. I always miss that up. Lower scoring, higher scoring. I mean, no, not that many people were under par, is what I'm trying to say. Only 9 players broke par in the first round. VJ shot an even to open up his tournament, but he ended up holding a 3-stroke lead over David Duval after 54 holes, after a 67 on Friday and a 70 on Saturday. In the end, only 10 players broke par for the whole tournament. VJ's final round 69. gave him the 3-shot win. Like I said, he went in with a 3-shot lead, shot a 69. There's not going to be many Masters tournaments where that gets caught. Another one without much drama down the stretch for VJ. Another guy also that was just like we kind of talked about this earlier, but just nobody dislikes VJ Sin. I feel like everybody's always rooting for. That's actually not true. People definitely dislike VJ
I,
Sin.
I
What
was
am I
I was I
talking
was
about?
gonna let you finish, but
I feel like,
like,
well, I feel like I think I bucket them differently, and part of that is because I wasn't like alive / conscious for all the controversy that surrounded VJ Singh. It's only been like things I've read up on and kind of after the fact digested. Um, so I feel like to me, I think of VJ the golfer before I think of the problems, and I feel like I guess I root for him because to me he's a little bit of an unsung great in that he was always behind Tiger Woods, and we talked a lot about that
right.
early in our podcast, before the Sony Open, before he played. So I guess in that way, you're right. There is a lot of drama surrounding his actual career and his perhaps morality. And there are a hell of a lot of people who don't like him. So I definitely shouldn't say that he's widely rooted for. But I do actually hold some grace for his position as one of the greats of the last 3 decades who often goes unsung, falling behind guys like Tiger Woods and Phil Mickelson as much as he did.
Yeah, you look at, was it 31 PGA Tour wins, only three majors. You look
Mhm.
at he strikes me as someone that, if you look at his stats and if you look at just the stretch he was on, he absolutely should have more wins. He absolutely should have more majors. I think, like you said, he's just a victim. Same with Phil Mickelson, same with David Duval, same with so many players. He's a
Mhm.
victim. He's a victim of playing golf in the early 2000s and playing
Yeah.
alongside Tiger Woods.
I mean, there was nothing you could do. He had a stretch where he made 5 straight top tens at the Masters, and that didn't even include his win. Wasn't able to knock one off during that stretch. I mean, a countless, T5 at the PGA, T3 at the US Open. There are countless top tens at major tournaments during that stretch of during the peak of his career, but was only able to knock off the three. Maybe you never know. Maybe he'll show up at the Open. I know he's got two PGAs, so he needs a US Open and an Open. So the career Grand Slam dreams for VJ Singh might be dead.
It's a bit of a
I'll be
pipe
the
dream,
first.
but
I'll be the first to call him. But that wraps up our still kicking, and VJ is still kicking. He played one PGA Tour event, so I was stretching a little bit to squeeze him in there. I just didn't quite know where else to put him. But we've got a surprisingly lengthy category of defecting major champions. A lot of these guys, actually, all these guys went to live, and this doesn't even include John Rahm, who we already talked about, and there's a couple others, but it starts in where are we starting? We are starting with Dustin Johnson in 2020. We teased this a little bit. This is the COVID Masters. I put that in big bold letters next to his major victory here. He is a two-time major champion to his credit, and he is another golfer who, at his peak, easily could have knocked off a couple more of these. But the 2020 Masters goes along with the 2016 US Open, 22-time winner on the PGA, which excludes those major victories, and 3-time winner on the Live Golf Tour. Um, but that all was, very early in his. Actually, he won a Live event in 2024 in Las Vegas. That was the most recent one. But he is the epitome of what we know as taking the money and running when it comes to Live. I mean,
right.
honestly, I don't even dislike him for it necessarily.
No.
Like you get handed a check for $200 million with no ask that you actually do anything. At $200 million, I made that up for the record. I don't have insight into his contract. Nobody asked me about that, but he took a ton of money to go play on Live and hasn't really done much since, and that's fine.
Yeah, and
To
that's
go
what I
back
respected the
to
most
his,
about it was,
yeah,
just
he
one
was
last point. That's what I respected the
no,
most,
no,
just
go.
because like he didn't try to bullshit anybody by saying, "Oh, I'm trying to grow the game and this is the future." No, he's like they paid me a shit ton of money and I get to play less golf and make more
Yeah,
money. Yeah, I'm gonna
yeah.
take it.
I think he said that in full swing, right? He said like, look, if you what's your job? If somebody paid you a lot more to do less of it, would you?
Right.
Yeah, of course I would. Like anybody in their right mind would say yes to that. And you can make a lot of arguments about where that money comes from and stuff, and that's a conversation for another day. But This
Back to
Masters was a
2020.
fever dream. Yeah, I don't think this actually happened. I'm not sure it's real. I have a distinct memory, and I can't even remember what hole it is. Maybe it's 10. I know it's a dog leg left. It just like seeing Augusta with nobody there on TV was the weirdest experience I think I've ever had. Like,
Going
it
back
didn't
and
seem like
watching those like across all
it's,
sport, like obviously the COVID golf, but like just the baseball, the basketball, like
yeah.
it was so weird.
Just yeah, it feels like I said, a fever dream. Like none of that was real to me, and this Masters kind of epitomizes that. I mean, like we said when we were talking about Jordan Spieth, he ends up shooting 20 under par, which is the 72 hole record. He also did tie Spieth's 54 hole record of 16 under par. Uh, okay, I don't know. He shot the low round of the day three different times on Thursday, Saturday, and Sunday. Yeah, and believe it or not, if you shoot the low round of the day three times, you are going to walk away with a major championship.
Pretty
And if I
safe.
remember, yeah, it wasn't. Yeah, it's a pretty safe bet that that's going to happen. And it was he won by 5 shots over Sung
Yeah.
J M and Cam Smith. JT was 8 shots back. Like this was not a competitive Masters. This is one I am
No.
so happy to fly through. If you're fine with that, I don't
I mean,
care.
I just want to give props to Dustin Johnson here. I think if you look at that was one of the I mean 2020 was when I like really started watching golf just because it was I remember it was the it was the first sporting event that came back was like that charity
Hmm.
match with I'm gonna get this wrong. I think it was Rory, Ricky Fowler, JT, and Matt Wolf for some reason. It was like
Yeah, I can
it
remember
was like
that.
a
Yeah.
tailor made, and it might have been DJ instead of JT. I remember it was like a tailor made thing, but um, I'm gonna have to look this up just because this was. But yeah, it was one of the first sports that came back, and so that was the. I
Yeah.
remember like we were so starved of sports that like my family, we all like sat on the TV or sat on the couch in
Yeah.
silence, like we're watching sports, like, and so
Those
that
those
was
those matches, those initial matches were appointment viewing.
really good. And so
Yeah.
of course now that they got like NFL players playing in them, they're not as great, but going back to so like I watched all of those tournaments and seeing Dustin Johnson, like I just want to highlight the stretch that he was on. So starting from the 2020 PGA Championship, he was T2, wins the Northern Trust, was on 59 watch in the first round. Mackenzie
Hmm.
Hughes actually did shoot a 59. Are second at the BMW, wins the Tour Championship, FedEx Cup champion. T6 US Open, T2 Vivint Houston Open, and then wins the Masters. And so that's where like and then to top it off, he finished, tied for 11th at the Century and then won the Saudi International. If that maybe a bit of a pre I think he
Means a
did get
lot.
some I think he got some heat for playing in that tournament. So I think
Yeah,
if
that's
that
where he
wasn't a
started making some connections.
if that wasn't a precursor, I think looking back and like I remember that now and like looking with the retrospect, but that was one of those times where I think I told anybody like bet like that was where you ride the horse until the horse can't ride anymore. Like he was on
Yeah.
such a tear that we talk about that's what makes Scotty Scheffler so special in my opinion was that he's done so like you've had the Jordan Spieths, you've had the Dustin Johnsons, you've had to an extent the Rory McIlroys, like the small like isolated little peaks, whereas Scotty's just gone on such a tear, which makes that even
Yeah.
more impressive. But anyway, I just wanted to give my props to Dustin Johnson there. Like that's someone that I
You're
watched for a while, and I will forever appreciate that massive end to the 2020 season.
you're right. And I was when I was putting this together, I should be a little bit more hesitant to dismiss it. But when I was putting this together, I was thinking like I shouldn't dismiss this Masters because he was on a run of play that absolutely deserves like a Masters win.
Right,
I I dismissed the 20 under par a little bit. That's
right.
kind of like I'm like you know what, maybe he would have done that with fans there. I don't know, but I have trouble believing that it's the same thing. And by the way, the event you were talking about was the TaylorMade Driving Relief in May 2020, for very first live golf broadcast following the sports hiatus, a skins match at Seminole between Rory McIlroy and DJ versus Ricky Fowler. and Matthew Wolf.
There we go. Okay. I knew I got it right there.
You were, yeah, you nailed that. That was very good memory. In terms of where DJ is now, we kind of mentioned it. He has not done anything on live of late. Like we said, took the money and ran. Actually won a live event in February 2024. Um, yeah, I think I put a note in here that I said, honestly, I think he's entirely comfortable with this outcome, and I stand by that. I think he absolutely is. Um,
Absolutely. I think, just going back, this goes back to what I was saying a bit earlier in the episode, which honestly, oh yeah, we're talking about Tommy Fleetwood. Um, like you said, he was on such a great tear. He won the Masters. He played in the full field and beat the full field. There was
yeah,
nothing that's in like everybody talks about like it was wetter because it was later in the year, the
hmm
conditions. Everybody was playing, and that's why like when everybody says like the Mickey Mouse championships, like the bubble championship, the 60 game MLB
yeah,
season, everybody was playing in the same conditions. And
yeah,
Dustin Johnson and those teams prevailed under those conditions. So that Masters absolutely should not have an asterisk in terms of it being a major win for him. I
right,
I do see what you're saying about if it is the only Masters that has ever been played in outside of April,
yeah,
then it absolutely should have a denotion that it was played in
right,
different conditions. So that's where
yeah,
I stand there.
yeah. And I know I feel bad because we've been recording for a really long time, but we're gonna keep cooking here.
I was just about
Uh,
to like
what's our
cross-reference.
time at right now?
I
What are
think
we
over
looking at?
I think we're over an hour at this point.
Okay, I'm gonna start moving everybody. Although, man, there's a couple good ones. Okay, Patrick Reed, one-time major champion, 2018 Masters, has one of the best Masters resumes. Maybe even in like recent history, it's pretty surprising. T4, T12, and a solo third in his last three starts at Augusta National. We've talked so much about where he is in regards to leaving Live, joining the DP World Tour in order to come back to the PGA Tour. His win at the Hero Dubai Desert Classic, his lost at the playoff to Freddie Shot at the Bapco Energies Bahrain, and his win at the Qatar Masters. He's playing really good golf. Weird part is he's coming in without having played golf in over a month, at least competitive golf in over a month. So
Right.
do with that what you will. With regard to his 2018 Masters win, he did hold a two-stroke lead going into the weekend. He shot 69-66 to start off his tournament. He led over Mark Leishman, and just to throw your guy Jordan Spieth's name in there, he was also four in front of Henrik Stenson, Rory McIlroy, and Jordan Spieth. And he didn't give it up. I'm comfortable flying through this one a little bit. I really like Patrick Reed. Actually, I know that, and that one I'm actually well aware of a lot of the controversy that surrounds him, and was conscious for it. Um, something about him, just I'm a big fan, especially I'm a big fan, especially now. I think with the move he's making to get back to the PGA Tour, we've talked a lot about the respect I have for that. Um, this is a fun little note for you, Jordan Spieth, who did start the round 9 strokes back on Sunday, shot a 64 and bogeyed the 72nd hole, where a par would have given him the tie for a course record with Nick Price and Greg Norman, and ended up just 2 shots off the lead.
Damn.
But yeah, look, in most situations, there was a couple guys that made good rounds. Ricky Fowler also shot a 67. In most situations, those chasers make those rounds and they press the leader a little bit, but Reed was far enough in front that he was able to hold on. He did end up needing to go one under and have two under par on his 7 holes to get that green jacket, but he walked away with it, and he still has it to this day, believe it or not. So good for him. And the last two more in this category of defectors, and I'll fly through these a little bit. Sergio Garcia, 2017, also only a one-time major champion. I knew that, but surprising nonetheless. I always thought that, considering the challenges he made when he was a lot younger, that he should have one or two more. I know he was in the mix a lot when he was, just coming up, and was obviously a very fiery and emotional player at that time. Obviously, he too has gone to live. Hasn't done much there. Surprise, surprise. Has logged 2 wins on Live Golf, most recent coming in March of 2025. But he's missed the. But he's not shown anything. Sorry, in 2026, he's only got one top 10 at Hong Kong, and he's missed the cut at 6 of his 7 Masters since this 2017 win, where, fun fact, Charlie Hoffman led by 4 after a Thursday 65, which apparently was the thing that happened, and then proceeded to go nine over in his final three rounds, including, I believe it was a 78 on Sunday. Not the worst round we'll discuss on Sunday at Augusta National. Finished,
Yeah.
and that was Charlie Hoffman finishing T22. Sergio, meanwhile, was tied for the lead following each of the final three rounds, which obviously means a playoff where he and Justin Rose held a one-shot lead over Ricky and three others for a while, but they did end up in a playoff. Obviously, Justin Rose takes part in both of the last two playoffs in Masters history. We have Rory last year, and unfortunately, he goes over 2. He bogeys the first playoff hole on the 18th, which Garcia actually birdied. So, but a bogey for Justin Rose gives Garcia his only major championship and that green jacket. Yeah, do you want to pipe up? Have anything specific to say about Sergio, or should we
I
jump
mean, I think
to the big lefty with the pink driver?
when you, my God, when you have the resume there, I think just looking like 10 Ryder Cups is crazy. I
Yeah,
think
it's nuts.
he's,
Well, yeah.
to be fair, he definitely was the epitome of the stereotypical OG live defector of just like a bunch of
Hmm.
European greats that were tired of traveling as much and just wanted a paycheck. And so, to his credit, he's still like he tries to qualify for the US Open, is not very successful in doing so. But yeah, Sergio just kind of strikes me as someone that, he probably and who knows? Maybe he still will, depending on whether they change their stance in years coming. But he deserved to be someone that stayed involved with the Ryder Cup and potentially been a captain if Luke Donald hadn't been doing such an amazing job. Go Cats! But Sergio was one of the all-time greats on the international scale, and I think he absolutely should have continued to be involved. And it's kind of sad that he's not anymore. But
Yeah.
and also,
I
like,
mean,
one last thing, like, can we ditch the McDonald's uniform at
oh
Augusta? It's
God,
so
it's
ugly.
awful.
The
I don't know why
red
we do that.
polo and the yellow pants. Who
There
the
are
hell came up with that?
there are better options and better ways to represent Spain than by wearing that abomination of an outfit. Um, yeah, it's really, really bad. It's a horrific. It's almost as bad as Billy Horschel's cardigan at the Open Championship. It's worse, actually, way worse. I'll pose something to you, Nick, and we can cut this or keep it in. I don't think it matters a ton. We will keep recording. Do you think we should end up putting this out in two different podcasts and cutting it in the middle and doing a part two? We can keep going to chug through it and get the recording done. But
I wouldn't mean I mean, it just depends on who's actually going to watch this thing. I know I wouldn't sit down for a 2-3 hour podcast, but I kind of like the idea of just chugging through. Maybe
I'm cool to chug through. I love chugging through, and we're about to get to a really interesting one in Bubba Watson. So if we want to just move through it, we can move through it. Maybe if anybody is still listening, we're probably already an hour in.
well,
Definitely
yeah,
already
we're
an
we're
hour in.
we're over an hour in at this point.
Okay. Well, if anybody's still listening, thank you so much and get ready because we got a good one here. Bubba was one of my favorite ones to write up here. Two-time major champion, only the Masters, because why would you win anything else? 10 times on the PGA Tour, four-time Ryder Cup player. A lot of the weight for those Ryder Cup presents was borne on the shoulders of these Master wins and two President Cups appearances as well. And this stat is crazy. He is one of only 8 players to win the Masters two or more times. The names he joins are Tiger Woods, Phil Mickelson, Nick Faldo, Scotty Scheffler, Jose Maria Olazabal, Ben Crenshaw, and Bernhard Longer. And then I wrote, which is literally insane because it is literally insane. Why
It
is
is.
why has Bubba Watson won two Masters jackets? Not all of those names are like pinnacle Mount Rushmore guys, but of those 8, or of those 7 that aren't named, whose name first names aren't Bubba. Uh, I mean, you got all the greatest golfers of all time, pretty much, save Jack Nicklaus.
What's his birth
Um,
certificate name? It's
it's
not
got to be.
Bubba.
That's a good question, actually. Bubba Watson birth certificate.
Oh my gosh. Jerry Lester Bubba Watson Jr.
Jerry Watson. He was correct to go by Bubba, actually. So. Good for
Especially
him.
with the swing he has, it's so cool
Yeah,
to go by
it's
Bubba.
perfect. We'll start. I don't know. Should we start in 2014 or 2012, Nick? Do you have preference? 2012 is the real excitement.
Was that the
But they're
playoff
both
one
good.
or?
2012 is the playoff.
Okay, good. Let's save that one for the end because I
You
got
want?
some thoughts on that
Okay.
one.
Okay. So we'll start in 2014. So he separated really early in 2014. Nobody shot better than 68 on either Thursday or Friday. So Bubba's 69, 68 start gave him a three-shot lead heading into the weekend over John Senden, along with a larger group, parentheses, including Jordan Spieth, who were trailing one behind Senden. And the most memorable aspect of this tournament actually was Bubba's Sunday showdown with Jordan Spieth, which is kind of something that slipped my memory. Obviously, like we said, we're kind of getting into that range where I didn't watch it, or I watched some of it live, but it's not sitting front of memory. But this was a really good back and forth, actually. So the two entered final round. The final round tied for the lead at 5 under, leading in front of Jonas Blixt, awesome last name, and Matt Kuchar by just one stroke. And Spieth at this time, this was the first of his Masters appearances. I already spoiled it earlier. He had a T. We know that Bubba wins, so I don't feel bad saying this, but he had a T2 in his first appearance. And at this point, he's a 20-year-old rookie in his first Masters start. And he comes out of the gate fast, just does not feel the pressure, doesn't care. Four birdies and one bogey in his first 7 holes, and actually took a two-shot lead into the seventh. Unfortunately, that's where the momentum completely shifted. Spieth went bogey bogey on 8 and 9, where Bubba would do the opposite and go birdie birdie, completely flipping the script, taking a two-shot lead into the back, and Spieth stalled on the back. And this kind of goes back to what I talked about. Is sometimes you really get the drama of the Masters on that front nine. This was one of those tournaments. The first 9 holes held a lot of swings. Like we said, Spieth kind of taking the lead there. Bubba just completely taking control with those back-to-back birdies to close out his front. And Bubba played steady golf on the back. He had just one bogey and one birdie. I believe Spieth had 8 pars and one bogey, if I remember right. I don't have it in front of me. And that gave Bubba Watson the three-shot victory. Excuse me, the three-shot victory in his second green jacket in just 3 years. So, I mean, we can jump right to 2012, but I'm wondering, Nick, if you have any reaction to that 2014 Spieth rookie appearance. What would you have been doing if you were conscious? What would your reaction to Jordan? Would you just have fallen right in love right then and there?
Let's see, this is 2014. I probably would have said, "Why are we watching this stupid golf? Can you turn on the Blackhawks game?"
Yeah, there we go.
That's probably
Uh,
what I would have said in 2014. But I think now, like, I think you really got to appreciate just the greatness. I think just to do so at that young of an age, like we talk about Masters debuts, and like I'm not even trying to sensationalize this. We talk about Masters debuts to do what he did in his not only at his Masters debut, but for how young he was to do
at
it.
20 years old.
I was not doing that at 20 years old.
No,
That's
no. I mean, and not to mention, like, not only to get into that position, but then to take a two-shot lead through 7 holes to come out of the gates unfazed and really like take control of the tournament for a second there. I know it didn't go his way, and I know he went bogey bogey, and he didn't lose this tournament. I mean, this is not the blow up of this wasn't a blow up. This was not the blow up that would come later, but um, like this was to be 20 and to do anything even sort of like what he did. Like I completely understand all the hype that was surrounding him when he was getting to this point in his career. Like it's just when a guy comes out of the gates that hot, there's no way not to look at that and be like, guys, we might have something here. I mean, I remember like not to talk about Will Zalatoris randomly for the third time in this podcast, but when Will Zalatoris was T2 at the Masters, when was that? In 20, I know it was his first his debut in 2021 actually at the 2021 Masters that Hideki would eventually win. Yeah, he ended up T2 one shot back. And how old is Will Zalatoris now? He is currently 29, so he was older. He was 25
wow.
in his Masters, which is actually a little surprising, but um he's 29. That's
That's
crazy.
crazy.
That is crazy. But nonetheless, like that's kind of I remember especially after he did it 2 years in a row, just the like, okay, this guy's going to knock off a couple majors. And obviously the conversation around that has changed with some injuries, but I mean, I can't even imagine what it was like watching a 20-year-old do it. Like, God,
Right.
it must have been an unbelievable experience to, be as old as I am now, sitting in front of the TV watching Jordan Spieth um, almost take a green jacket in his first attempt. Which, to my knowledge, has anybody won a green jacket in their first attempt?
I don't think so.
I don't believe so. Has
Yeah.
anyone won the
Well,
Masters?
you
I
look that up.
really doubt it.
I'll get into 2012 if you want to look that
Yeah, you
up.
can.
I can.
It's X3 have, but nobody's done it since 1979, so
Okay,
not really.
fair enough.
Uh,
So
Go
2012,
for
I
it.
think, was the first time we really saw Bubba Watson come in on a tear. It was one of only two Masters in the last 14 iterations at the time, in which the eventual winner came from more than two strokes back. Just really steady golf for Bubba over the first 3 days. Under par was solo fourth at 6 under par. Peter Hansen held the 54 hole lead going into the final round. He shot a 65 on Saturday, one stroke ahead of Phil Mickelson, another big lefty in the field. Louis Oosthuizen, that's a name I haven't heard in a while, was a shot behind at 7 under as well, and Bubba was right behind him there. Both Peter Hansen and Phil fell back fairly quickly. Um, Oosthuizen had that. Then that's where I definitely remember hearing him was that the albatross on the second hole, which was
That's what I was talking about earlier in the shots that like
you
I forget
remember.
exactly. Well, yeah, and in what context this came up, I forget exactly. Maybe I was talking about Rory's 7 iron or something, and if he had
Yeah,
lost, but it's one of those shots that like I know that shot. I've seen that shot 1,000 times. I for the first 20 times I saw that shot of Louis Oosthuizen's albatross on the second hole, had no idea it was from the Masters. And like think about if he, because you'll get into the story. I know if he ends up walking away with this green jacket and it's because of the albatross he had on the second hole at Augusta National on Sunday. I mean, imagine the like that shot would probably be the great. I mean, I know it's the front nine, but it's like probably the most consequential shot in golf history. Like that's not
for
true,
sure. And
but up there.
so, yeah, he did not win the green jacket.
Spoiler.
He gave one back on the fourth hole, but had a one shot lead over Bubba on the front nine. Or he was a two shot lead heading into
Heading into the back, yeah,
the second nine is what they say, Mr. Neary.
they do.
Um, the
You're right. I'm
tournament
sorry.
was likely Oosthuizen's, carried a two-stroke lead into the 14th hole, but Bubba then birdied the par 5 13th, and then would rattle off three birdies in a row. Um, Louis matched one of the birdies on the 15th, but set up a playoff at 10 under par, and this is where I look at this and I'm still just bewildered because if anybody knows Bubba Watson, they know that he was entirely self-taught and has never taken a golf lesson in his life and is the epitome of play the slice. He aims 30 yards, or I guess our right, because he is a lefty, but he aims like 30 yards right on every single hole and just plays these massive banana slices.
I mean,
And
uh, of all his famous shots, and I won't spoil the one you're about to talk about. Every single other one is a driver off the deck cutting 75 yards into a par five.
exactly, which is why a 40 yard hook with a 52 degree through a tiny gap in the woods, sticking it to 15 feet was just truly incredible. I
Yeah,
think
so
it's one of the all-time shots. I think just the fact that it came from a serial slicer is even crazier to me.
yeah. I mean, this that shot is ridiculous under any circumstances. The fact that it comes on the second playoff hole, obviously they both par the first playoff hole, but it comes on the second playoff hole on the 10th hole at Augusta National when he pipes a drive just 40 yards into the woods, like so far into the woods. And I was rewatching the shot and the Masters broadcast from 2012 just a few hours ago when I was getting ready for this, and it's 155 yards to the pin from where he is in the woods. At least that's what they pop up on the little box on the TV in the top right. And he hit a 52 degree in 2012, 155-yard hook that hooks 40 yards, 15
Incredible.
feet from the pin. And it's another one of the calls that just like listening to that live, like hearing the pure shock in Jim Nance's voice and the announcer's voice when that ball lands so close to the pin and rolls out to like 15 feet. He ended up only needing to two putt, but like hearing that's one of the beauties of golf and of Augusta is like when the ball's in the air and the ball's in the air and the announcers are like, did he get enough hook on it? Like, is it gonna get right? And then it lands like 50 feet. They're like, oh my goodness, he's done it. It's like, oh my God, it's so sick. I will be
Yeah,
rewatching that shot again tonight.
100%. I think, in terms of talking about Bubba Watson, like, it's kind of a shame. I do miss watching him play. He's done next to nothing since going to live in 2023. Only has five top 10 finishes since 2023. And I think his biggest legacy, as, obviously he's a major champion, but I think his biggest legacy is having arguably the worst champions dinner of all time.
Oh, I forgot about that.
So I got the menu pulled up. This
Oh
one
God,
massively drew the ire of Nick Faldo. It was a Caesar
what
salad,
doesn't?
a grill, yeah, fair. A Caesar salad, a grilled chicken breast served with green beans, mashed potatoes, corn on the cob, and mac and cheese. For dessert was confetti cake, which never diss the confetti cake. That's
Yeah, it's
awesome.
delicious.
And vanilla ice cream. And so honestly, not a bad meal, but in terms of
Yeah.
like what's normally expected at the Masters dinners, that's a bit of a
Yeah, that's a meal that I
lackluster.
make myself for dinner in the summer.
Right.
That's not a meal that I attempt to serve Nick Faldo at Augusta National after my victory. Um yeah, man, he is like this time I'm actually right in the capacity that I was not when I was talking about VJ Singh. He is the easiest guy to root for.
Yeah.
Just like that old pink driver with the massive head that he hits the banana slices with that like literally the randomest incredible shot of all time. And that's the only reason I'm okay with the fact that Louis Oosthuizen's shot doesn't go down in Masters history. It just goes down in history as an albatross. Is because Bubba Watson then pulled this out of his ass to win the Masters from the trees on the 10th hole on the second playoff.
Right.
Like that makes it okay. It's like thank you, Bubba, because otherwise that would have been a shot lost to history, and now we get an added bonus of this beauty that you put together.
Absolutely.
Um, Nick, I fear that it might be time.
No.
It unfortunately we've entered the trivia night winners category, and it begins with our very own Danny Willett. And really, it begins with Jordan Spieth. My first note on Danny Willett here is that I feel bad that I'm not going to talk much about Danny Willett, but also he was barely there.
Not listening. Not
Uh,
listening.
this is also the only man on this list who never won a PGA Tour event.
Yeah.
Never, he's got seven DP World Tour victories, one Ryder Cup appearance in 2016, thanks to his Masters victory, and one major championship. And you can obviously deduce which major championship he won. This is a very well-renowned major. I feel horrible for what I'm about to do to Nick, and
I mean, you
I
do what you
would.
want. I think this is the perfect time for a bathroom break. But
I don't know if Nick's leaving or what's going on, but I'm going to go through this because this was, God, just like truly remarkable to rewatch, rewrite, to go through this. So everybody knows the story and the ending here, but we'll start with Jordan Spieth, who opens the tournament with a 66, the lowest round on Thursday by two strokes. We've said that about Jordan Spieth before. Literally 1 year prior to this in 2015, he did the same thing. And that 66 ends up actually being the lowest score of the tournament. So Spieth followed that up with a 74 on a Friday, which sounds bad, but only four players broke par. Um, and then he followed that up with a 73 on a Saturday where only five broke par. So we had a really hard 2 days there. And to get this back to the eventual winner, Danny Willett, he did play golf those first three rounds. He was there. It was very unremarkable golf. He went from a 70 on Thursday, matched Spieth's 74 on Friday, and then had an even par 72, settled in at overall even par T5 and three strokes back of leader Jordan Spieth heading into Sunday. So obviously, this was not the runaway victory that we had in 2015 from Jordan Spieth. By no means, uh-oh. He's
did did
Nick, I
did
didn't
did,
finish
did he
yet.
say
It's
you?
not over.
Oh, come on.
not over. I'm only getting to Sunday. I only got through the first three rounds. So now that we're in a beautiful place of through three rounds, only Jordan Spieth at three under, Smiley Kaufman at two, Hideki at one, and Bernard Longer at one were under par. Smiley Kaufman ejected incredibly hard. This is the highest Sunday round we'll talk about with an 81 on Sunday. Finished T29. Bernhard Longer did not do much better, shooting a 79 in the penultimate group. Just, you know, see yourself to the door, man. That's it. Unfortunately, that's wraps. So we'll focus on what really the nitty gritty here, unfortunately, and that's when Spieth had gotten through the front nine and four under par. Willett had played a bogey free two under front, and they entered the back nine separated by five. So now we're kind of back in the territory of 2015. This is Spieth's tournament to win. This is Spieth's tournament to lose, and lose it he did. Unfortunately, he bogeys 10 and 11. Still held a three-shot lead. You're not quite unraveling at this point. You just got to get through 12 and you don't get through 12. Obviously, his first shot on that 12th hole comes up short, hits the bank, comes back into the water. Um, and then he moves to the drop zone and then hits maybe the grossest shot of all time. That's not true or fair, but it adds a little bit of spice to what I'm talking about. And he chunks his wedge. Just it barely makes it to the water. This did not hit the bank and come back. It barely gets in there.
It rolled
Um,
into the water.
yeah, it was. Did it hit bank first, and
I
then I
think it
couldn't tell
did.
when I was rewatching the broadcast. I couldn't quite tell, but that sounds about right. Either way, not great. He goes back to the drop zone, goes long of the green in the back bunker, does not get up and down, walks off with a quadruple bogey 17. All of a sudden, he is two over par on the round. Danny Willett holds a one stroke lead. How did we get here? What has happened? Everything has gone. The credit I will give Danny Willett here is that he did not then fade. He walked off that 12th hole, or actually he was playing in groups ahead, but he walked under the pressure of knowing he had that lead, and he goes one under. Sorry, Jordan Spieth went one under for the remainder of the tournament. Willett made no bogeys and added three birdies of his own in the final six holes. Obviously, he was a little in front of Jordan Spieth, so one of those bogeys may have come before Jordan actually went in the water there and collapsed. But he walks off the 72nd with a three-shot victory, and as I wrote here, one of the most unexpected green jackets in history. I mean, from nowhere. And say what you will about the guy. I mean, to his credit, he was not that far back heading into Sunday. That's not the story here. The story is the back nine, as Nick, I'm sure you know all too well. One of the sad, it's like also, I think the thing that strikes because we'll talk about other collapses that give major victories in a second. Because as you might guess, the trivia night winners category is kind of riddled with that sort of trend, I guess. But this is one where you could just see how emotional Jordan Spieth was after that 7 on 12, knowing he had, I mean, at that point, the tournament was not gone. It was not lost. But watching him, you knew that it was gone. Like you knew that it was lost because he was not rebounding. I mean, to his credit, like I said, he did actually go one under for the remainder of the tournament, but he was not going to catch up and go, it was all of the spirit seemed out of him in that moment.
Yeah.
And it literally like watching it, I almost started crying. I was just like, oh my, like because I mean, also you have to remember he's a major champion now. He won the Masters the year before, but he's 22 years old. This is a kid who,
I'm 22
has
years
won
old
on
right
the,
now.
yeah, you're 20. I'm 4 years older than that. And I can't imagine being 22. You've already won on the biggest stage. Um, but so I guess I'll let you go first if there's anything you want to add. This is about where I wanted to bring up what I was going to talk about before, but I'll let you go first before I bring that up.
No, I definitely agree. I think, just seeing Greller sort of pushing off the cameras and asking for space, like that's an infamous clip. And I think it's a really cool tradition that the Masters champion is the reigning champion is the one that like gives the current champion the jacket. I think it's one of the coolest traditions in sports. It makes for
Unfortunately, it
some of the
is.
most heartbreaking, that was one of the most heartbreaking jacket transfers of all time. And I think, and personally, I'm saying this without Spieth bias or anything like that. I kind of feel bad for Danny Willett in this case because this was supposed to be like his big day. It's supposed to be his big triumph. And but you can't bring up Danny Willett's Masters win without talking about Jordan Spieth. And so
No.
in a sense feel bad for Danny Willett in that case that he can't fully enjoy because like I am not saying that he didn't earn that victory, but there are people out there that say that, he only won because Spieth handed him the seven. And, there's unfortunately that's what he's had to live with since winning the tournament. And it's not the grace and history that all other Masters winners have had in their careers.
Well, I mean, we talked about it even, I think it was last week when we were briefly just, I don't even know how this came up. We were briefly going through on the podcast, we were going through, how most Masters winners aren't, they are like we talked about a lot. Like a lot of the Masters winners that we've had in the last few decades are guys that are well established and are coming in playing some good golf, or at least like in their past years have played some good golf. They're usually not random people that don't win any PGA Tour events. And I think even in that moment when I was going through the list, kind of checking off like, okay, well, this guy is established. Scotty Scheffler is established. Even Hideki Matsuyama is a fairly established golfer. And then you get down to 2016. And I think even if you go back on the podcast, I think I said something like even in 2016, like, yes, Mike Weir, like Jordan Spieth's the one who like lost that Masters more than Mike Weir, or sorry, not Mike Weir. I'm looking ahead on my notes, but more than Danny Willett won it, which is arguably true. But you are totally right, and I think there is an important emphasis to put on the fact that Willett played with the lead and played well with the lead. Like, I mean, when the opportunity comes to you, you can do with it what you can, and he did the most he could with it, and he walked off with a green jacket. And it is true that like did he get outside contribution from Jordan Spieth? Yes, but like every tournament, people make mistakes. Every tournament, people make sevens. Every tournament, all this stuff happens. It just so happened that in this tournament, the guy who made those mistakes was leading. Like if he hadn't been leading, there was other guys that Danny Willett maybe would have lost to had they not made an eight. Like there's so many different variables that happen in a golf tournament. It's so hard. And I myself am probably somebody who does this too often, especially with this tournament in 2016, says like, well, Jordan Spieth handed it to him. Well, like, yeah, but also Danny Willett
Ball
put
don't lie.
himself in the position to capitalize on it and won the golf tournament. So that's life. That's how golf works. That is the one thing I did want to bring up because you mentioned earlier that some people will argue that this was the beginning of the drought for Spieth. This was kind of where things took a turn. Like you said, he wins another major championship. He wins what? There was a 2017
Yeah,
that
it's the
he
Open,
wins
2017, the Open.
the 2017 Open. There was actually when I was looking this up, I was very hesitantly going to watch the clip. And, I looked up something like, Jordan Spieth, 12th hole Augusta 2016 shot and hit enter. And one of the first articles that pops up is like how the one shot on 12 at Augusta for Jordan Spieth changed the trajectory of his career forever. And
No,
I was like, no, yeah, unfortunately, no. He also, like you said, won another major, and he's on the PGA Tour having a very relative amount of success. Like
right.
he's not a this is not a failure story. It's a you
And
know
I think I'll credit this to, recent information. I think everybody at the time, like I don't blame people for thinking that, I mean, obviously they're wrong in the sense that he won a major afterwards, but I don't blame people for thinking that, this was a mental collapse and that he lost the game from a mental side. I don't blame them for thinking that way. They're ultimately wrong because we discovered when he had his wrist surgery, he had mentioned that it is something that had been bugging him since about 2015.
yeah
And so it was just the wrist issue that compounded. And, this is why I'm very optimistic for the future of Jordan Spieth because he finally has a fully healthy wrist for the first time since maybe 2015. And
yeah
so that's where. People will say it was 2016 that was the decline of Spieth. It ended up just being the wrist, but can we please move
Yes, we can.
on?
We can, especially because we have six left. And Spieth is going to be the last one of those that takes a real long time. I promise. But we are still in that trivia night winners category. Obviously, don't mean to be dissing these guys, but they are the guys that if anybody ever were to ask you, the most unlikely winners of the Masters in recent history, these are them. So next up, we'll talk about Charles Schwartzel. 2011 major champion, Masters champion, apologies, and one-time major champion, that being the 2011 Masters. He also won once on the PGA Tour to differentiate himself from Danny Willett. Does have a live golf win alongside DP World Tour. I know it was the European Tour at the time. I'm just going to call it DP World Tour for consistency's sake. Four President's Cup appearances. And this is another one. The story is more about Rory McIlroy than it is Charles Schwartzel. So Rory is 21 years old at the time. A lot of parallels we can draw between this and 2016. He's 21 years old at the time, and at this point, he's just a one-time PGA Tour winner and does not have majors to his name. But he opens with a little unlike Jordan Spieth in that sense. But Rory does, with a 65 on Thursday and a 69 on Friday to hold a two-shot lead over Jason Day. At this point, Charles Schwartzel is 6 strokes back after, a fairly steady 69-71 to open the tournament. Responds with a 68 on Saturday. McIlroy didn't really let up, although he didn't, go low either. He shot a 70. So he walks off the 54th hole green with a 4-stroke lead after some of the others that were up near him, like Jason Day, fall back a little bit and join Charles Schwartzel at T2, 4 shots behind Jordan Spieth. The others in that group are KJ Choi and Angel Cabrera. Um, by the time the front nine came to an end on Sunday, Charles Schwartzel had scored a solid 2 under par, which was highlighted by an eagle on the third. Which the third, I've been to Augusta one time. The third is like the crazy. I don't understand how you could possibly eagle that hole. It is. I know it's quasi drivable. It is so hard. I don't need to go on a whole tangent about that. But um, like I said, he scored a solid 2 under on that front nine. He made an eagle on the third. Rory shot 1 over. So the gap at the end of the front nine between those two specifically was just 1 stroke. Angel Cabrera joined Charles Schwartzel in that front nine 34, also sitting 1 shot back of Rory. And I actually wrote this, and I don't know if you'll like this or hate me for it, but I did write that Rory's sudden back nine explosion is one that only Jordan Spieth fans can be happy to see because they then know that they are not alone. He opened his back nine going triple bogey, bogey, double bogey, and just full on pull the ejection cord, pull the rip cord. I'm out of here. I'm ejecting. He ends up with a 43 on the back the second nine on Sunday. Cards an 80 and finishes T15, which leaves Charles Schwartzel alongside Angel Cabrera with the lead. But a bogey from Cabrera leaves Charles Schwartzel the lead alone. And Jason Day did make 2 birdies on 12 and 13, kind of finds his way up there. Adam Scott kind of finds his way into the conversation with birdies on 11 and 14. But Schwartzel closes it out. 4 straight birdies in his final 4 holes. Shot the low round of the day with a 66, wins by 2. This is another one, kind of what you were talking about with Danny Willett, maybe even to a greater extent. This is one like, yes, Rory ejected. Charles Schwartzel shot a 66 on Sunday and birdied the last 4 holes. I'm pretty comfortable giving him the green jacket after that performance.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I mean, look, there's not a lot going on with Charles Schwartzel these days. He's not a lot of times you hear his name. Um, in 2026, he's another one who left for live. He could have put him in the defectors category if I wanted, but that's no fun. He
Right.
left in 2022 immediately after the PGA Championship, and he won his first tournament in live in 2022. And that is his last professional win. That is his most recent professional win is June 2022 at Live Golf London.
Was that the first
Uh,
live event?
I believe it was because it was his first live event, and I believe he went for the first live. He was one of the first to
That's,
go to live. I know it
I
was
mean,
his first event,
that's even more of a trivia question is who's the first live winner?
and it's Charles Schwartzel. If you ever need to
Which
pull that out at
tells
the
you
bar,
everything you need to know about Live Golf League.
yeah. Yeah. And like I said, last professional win in 2026 has not been kind to him. And in his 14 Masters starts since 2011, he's only got 2 top 10 finishes. So I don't know. I'd linger on Charles Schwartzel honestly if I had a lot more to say about Charles Schwartzel or this Masters. Like we said, Rory kind of ejects a little bit. The story is more about him, but at the same time, it is worth mentioning. Like Charles Schwartzel put on a really, really good Sunday performance to take this, regardless of what Rory did. So there you have
Yeah,
it.
for sure. And then 2003, my birth
Yeah,
year, we got Mike
that's
Weir.
that's upsetting. Yeah, another one-time major champion, as you can guess. This Mike Weir's got 7 PGA Tour championships, so you know, all uh, all power to him. More credit maybe than or less unexpected, I suppose I should say, than Charles Schwartzel and Danny Willett, purely from a PGA Tour win perspective. Obviously, if the other guys have more DP World Tour wins, so all that to say that 2003 was the year that Mike Weir walked away with a green jacket. And he actually, this was a little bit different than the other ones. He never left the top five after every single round, never shot low round of the day, but played super steady, especially Thursday and Friday with a 70 and a 68. That gave him a 4 stroke lead over Darren Clark and 5 strokes over Phil Mickelson and Ricky Barnes. There was only 4 players under par at all through 2 rounds. Weir followed it up with like a kind of messy 75, and he gave the lead up to Jeff Maggart. And unfortunately, I wish I could go through this really quickly, but this ends up being a really interesting Sunday. I will be concise, I promise, but I may not be brief or skip. But Maggart did hold the lead over Weir, who was 2 strokes back, and there were a lot of big names chasing. Which I think this is. I texted Nick when I was going through this that I think this might be my favorite Masters. Just looking at like the names that are up on the board and what ended up happening. So you've got Jeff Maggart holding the lead over Mike Weir, who's 2 strokes back, like I said, but VJ Singh, David Toms are 3 strokes behind. Phil Mickelson, Jose Maria Olazabal, and Tiger Woods are just one further stroke back, so 4 strokes back from the lead. And Jeff Maggart actually gave up the lead super quickly. So really, he held it obviously going in, but he gave it the lead really, really quickly. A par on the par five second, which is effectively a lost stroke, where Weir did pick up a stroke, and then a subsequent triple bogey 7 on the third. As I mentioned, don't know how you eagle that hole. Giving Weir, my autocorrect wrote weird, which is not very nice. Giving Mike
Poor
Weir
guy.
a 2 stroke. What that happened a couple times when I was writing this, and I was like, I can't imagine what grade school was like for poor Mike Weir. But anyways, ironically, Maggart ended up playing his Sunday round bogey free and double bogey free, which is really good. And he carded 5 birdies. So you're like, God, what a round from Jeff Maggart. No, actually, he had an 8 on the par 312. Spieth fans rejoice. You're not alone once again. But Mike Weir played really very steady golf given the situation. Again, kind of similar to what we talked about with Danny Willett. He went bogey free with 4 birdies to find his way to 7 under. That's on Sunday. And of the big name chasers that I mentioned, the VJ Singh, the Phil Mickelson, the Tiger Woods, only Mickelson really put up any fight, but his run came too late. He gave 3 birdies in the final 6. The real challenge came from Len Matayachi. I'm trying my best, man. I am. I think that's right, maybe. But that would have been an even more unexpected champion, especially the nature through which this would have happened. Because Len Matayachi played his first 17 holes on Sunday in 8 under par. A birdie would have, on
Wow.
18 would have tied the course record. And he actually held a 2 stroke lead when he walked onto 18. I had to
Oh,
rewatch
that's
the end of
insane.
this tournament. Like the full broadcast is on YouTube. I had to rewatch the end of this tournament to like make sure this was right. He held a 2 stroke lead over Mike Weir heading as he walked onto the 18th tee. Weir's down on 15, several groups behind. He didn't know it at the time. Len Matayachi didn't, but a par would have won him a green jacket. Unfortunately, cards a bogey, falls back to 7 under. And that brings up Mike Weir, who holds a 6 foot par putt on the 72nd hole to join Len Matayachi at 7 under and into a playoff, which a playoff at the Masters between Mike Weir and Len Matayachi. I mean, people must have been just scratching their heads, just trying to figure out what the hell's going on. But yeah, I mean, so Len Matayachi had started 3 shots back of Mike Weir, 5 shots of Jeff back of Jeff Maggart. And he hit bogey 18 in each of his final 3 rounds. Um, So in that playoff, which began on hole 10, the Magic, which maybe you could argue ran out on 18 for Len. Again, I'm hoping I'm pronouncing this right. We will correct it if I'm not. Len Mattiacci's his Magic ran out as a poor approach shot led to a double bogey on 10. Mike Weir continued his steady play, made his only bogey of the day with a three putt because he knew he could, and walks off with a green jacket. And he's now on the Champions Tour. He's actually logged one win. It was in 2021. Made three starts in 2026, a couple top 15 finishes. Um, yeah, he's unfortunately, in Masters appearances, he has not fared particularly well. He's missed the cut in 13 of his last 15 appearances, but
Hmm.
this was one where I might at some point after like this Masters goes by need to sit down and watch the full broadcast of this final round because going through this I was like, what the Len Mattiacci, where did he come from? Like I thought
I'll be
Phil
right there
like
with you. I gotta watch
I
this.
like because you have those, and the reason I was texting that this is one of my favorites is like you're sitting there. There's a guy in the lead who you don't know that well. There's a guy two back that you don't know that well. And then you've got Vijay Singh, David Toms, Phil Mickelson, Jose Maria Olazabal, and Tiger Woods. Right, like I mean, three or four shots back. You're fully expecting one of them to come up, and then the guy that ends up coming up is like a guy who goes eight under par through 17 holes out of nowhere, and almost wins this thing. I mean, yeah, that is one that I was obviously four, three. I was three. I was four. I was three. I was three for that tournament.
I wasn't born.
So I know that's upsetting. I was three, and I was not dialed into Len Mattiacci at the time, unfortunately. But what a tournament, man! I am gonna have to go back and watch that, and
Center Cup
I don't
movie
know,
night.
Center Cup movie nights, 5 hours, but yeah, we can do it.
What's this podcast gonna be?
It's actually just us. It's silence. It's us watching Len Mattiacci. Yeah, next podcast is 5 hours of us just live commentating to this to the 2000 the 2003 Masters. I don't know. We can move on to Freddie Couples, who I've put in a category of his own titled Fred Couples only has one major championship question mark question mark question mark. Uh
That's insanity.
Fred Couples only has one major championship. He only the 1992 Masters only major that he ever won. He's got two players, another victim of, I mean, maybe not quite as much of a victim of the Tiger Woods, Phil Mickelson era, just because he was already kind of aging towards the end of his career at that point, or the end of his real PGA Tour. But, he definitely lost some to those guys. Only 12-time PGA Tour win as well. Two DP World Tour wins, three Champions Tour wins, five Ryder Cups, four Presidents Cups. I was initially, when I started doing this, Freddie Couples was actually the first guy that I kind of delved into. And I was so confused by the fact that he only won one major champion that I had to go into the OWGR a little bit. I promise this is the only time I do this for any of these guys. He was the only American to be the number one golfer in the world in the first decade of the OWGR system, which began in 1986.
Hmm.
He held the title for 16 weeks, starting in late March of 1992 and ending in mid-July. 15 of those were consecutive, but he did spend 322 weeks, or roughly 6.2 years, in the top 10 in
That's
OWGR, but
insane.
only got those 16 weeks in the number one golfer in the world position, which also was a little shocking to me. But you look at the guys he was around there. He swapped weeks with Nick Faldo. There was just so much talent near the top of the OWGR board at that time. But yeah, anyways, I mean, I was truly, truly shocked to be reminded that Freddie Couples only has the one major. By the way, Jim Nance's college roommate, I believe, Freddie Couples.
Really?
I think I'm not crazy. I'm like not. I've heard that story enough times that if either somebody's lying or I'm not crazy.
Yeah, I'm not
Yep,
doubting you.
indeed.
I've never heard the story,
No,
but
it's
that's
true.
really
Jim
cool.
Nance's most famous. Yeah, the pair roomed together while attending the University of Houston because they were both on the golf team.
Oh
Fun
yeah,
fact
that's
about
right.
Jimmy Nance, our good friend Jim Nance. But this is another Masters, the 1992 one, where he just played. Shout out, in a la Adam Scott, or rather, Adam Scott played a la Freddie Couples, just really, really consistent golf. He didn't shoot lower than 67. He didn't shoot higher than 70. He entered the final round one stroke back of Craig Perry, who actually started quite well on Sunday. Actually got his lead up to three strokes, but he had three consecutive three putts at one point in his round, which is just not fun. I've done that before. I didn't think somebody at the Masters or leading the Masters would be likely to do that, but makes me feel a little bit more human. But another aspect that removed him from contention, actually, and this was kind of the talking point after the Masters this year, was the crowd's supposed blatant favoritism for couples, which Perry brought up. Basically, Perry's an Australian, and couples was and very much still is a crowd favorite in the United States. I mean, everyone loves his swing, obviously, but I feel like he's also just a very jovial and friendly guy, and obviously one of the better golfers in the world for a lot of his career, as we mentioned, 6+ years in the top 10 in OWGR. But Perry, after his finish, talked a lot about how the gallery was they were paired together in the final pairing, and the gallery was very, very openly rooting for Freddie Couples, which is fine, but also very much rooting against Craig Perry. Which I'm not sure if there was a ton of resolution around that. I'm not sure how much was done to see the validity of that, but I'm sure to some degree it was certainly true. Um, but another famous aspect of this was 12, which Jordan Spieth fans cover your ears when Freddie Couples' ball stayed up just inches above the water on the bank on 12. Just so, like the miracle of all miracles, every single ball falls back to the water. Freddie Couples, some blade of grass holds it up, some act of God. He gets up and down for par too, which, like, to his credit, is really, really impressive from that bank. Um, but yeah, he ends up chipping it up and down, getting up and down, and Raymond Floyd actually really makes the challenge here. He was one shot behind Couples, ended up being the closest competitor, shot a one under par 71, ends up two back. But once Craig Perry ejected here with his three putts and a 78 in the final round, this was Freddie Couples' tournament to lose. And if anybody's not losing a tournament, it's Freddie Couples. Like,
With that swing, like,
how could you possibly lose the tournament? Yeah, maybe that's why the ball stayed up on 12. Maybe the gods were like, I mean, look how pretty his swing is. Like, he's
you
got to win
can't
one of these,
not.
right? He can't have not have a major championship. We might as well give him a green jacket. Hell, like, I still can't believe he only has one major championship. That
That's
feels wrong.
insane.
Um, anyways, beautiful Masters, but where are they now? Freddie Couples moved to the Champions Tour in 2017, a while ago. So obviously, by some rudimentary math, we can deduce that he is now 66 years and 5 months old. He moved to the Champions Tour in 2017, grabbed two wins in his first year, only has won one since, which came in 2022. Jump forward to 2026. He's made three starts in the Champions Tour. A T7 is really the highlight there. This will be his 41st Masters start,
That's insane.
which is outrageous. He has missed the cut in six of the last seven. If I remember right, last year was a missed putt on the fifth on the 36th hole. I feel maybe I'm misremembering, but I feel like there was a lot of drama surrounding the potential of Freddie Couples making the cut last year. Hopefully,
I
he
thought
will
he, I
this
thought he,
year.
I thought he did he
Did
not
he?
make the cut?
No, he didn't. I think he missed it with a putt on the 18th.
Well, because I
Um,
remember, didn't he hole out with a seven wood or something like that?
there was something like that as well. But no, at the Masters last year, he did miss the cut. I can double check. I believe it was on the number. Um, let's see here. Fred Couples, yep, and one off the number actually. He needed two over par. He ended up four over par. So, but I do believe he
Ah,
was very much in contention to be making that cut and ended up missing it, which was a shame. And we are finally making it to the others category, Nick, which means we are around the corner from being done with this thing.
we're
I
so
appreciate you
close.
sticking with me. I'm sorry that I wrote so much stuff.
Hey,
Uh,
before we get into the next section, anybody who's listening, massive shout out to our guy Will. The research he puts in on every single episode, he gives us course descriptions, he gives us
you're too
players to
sweet to
watch, he
me.
gives us data golf rankings. The Center Cup podcast does not run without this man. So,
You are too sweet to me. The truth is that this was an absolutely lovely experience for me. It's so fun to get to learn about these masters. I'm not even lying. But we will start with the first two-time major champion that we've had in a little while, in Angel Cabrera, who won the Masters in 2009, the U.S. Open in 2007. Only one PGA Tour victory, um, but three on the DP World Tour, three on the Champions Tour, four Presidents Cups. Again, I mean, how many times am I going to talk about really steady golf? Another example of that, back-to-back 68s to start off the tournament. He's one back of Chad Campbell and Kenny Perry. Uh, Goes on to shoot a 69 on Saturday. The low round was just a 68 that day, so he gains one on Perry, enters the final round tied at 11 under par with one Chad Campbell, or sorry, with one Kenny Perry. That was gonna be a cool statement if I'd gotten the name right, huh? Tied at 11 under par with one Kenny Perry. Chad Campbell, on the other hand, is sitting two strokes behind. My brain is fried.
It's late
Despite
tonight. We'll give it to you.
It's late. It's late. Despite a birdie on the third hole, Angel Cabrera actually played the first 10 holes in two over par. Perry made 11 straight pars, which is hard to do. And a birdie on 12 gave him a three-stroke advantage over Angel Cabrera. In the pairing in front of them, Chad Campbell, who's going to be a character here, made two birdies on the front nine to draw even with Kenny Perry for the lead. Gave for some reason these names are so Kenny Perry and Chad Campbell just get mixed up in my head. But he gave both those strokes. Kenny Perry gave both those strokes back with bogeys on 9 and 11, once again sitting two shots back. So Angel Cabrera comes out and makes three birdies in four holes between 13 and 16. Kenny Perry also birdies 15 and 16. We got a little bit of a birdie fest going on here. But as they step onto the 17 tee, the final group, Kenny Perry and Angel Cabrera, Kenny Perry holds a two-stroke lead over Angel Cabrera and Chad Campbell, who is playing a group ahead and is currently on 18. So he's got a two-shot lead, two holes to play. We're feeling pretty good. Perry at the time was 48, and that would have made him the oldest major winner. Obviously, that is not the case anymore. Phil Mickelson was 50 when he won. Was he 50 or 51 when he won at Kiowa? I was there, by the way. Fun fact.
Oh,
I think he was 51.
I thought it
I
was
think
50.
it might have been 50. One of the two. Anyways, irrelevant, really, because older than Kenny Perry was in 2009. But Kenny Perry would have been the oldest major winner ever at this time. And a poor approach shot and a worse chip, which would be a theme on the next hole as well, uh, results in a bogey on 17. The lead is just one. Cabrera makes a par. Another poor approach shot after another fantastic drive on 18. This time, the approach is pulled left of the green. Another bogey after another missed 15-foot par putt brings about the first and only three-way playoff we've had at the Masters since 1979 between Angel Cabrera, Kenny Perry, and Chad Campbell. Um, Unfortunately, our guy Chad Campbell, would drop out of the playoff with a birdie on the first hole. So we get winnowed down to just two fellows. We have Angel Cabrera and Kenny Perry on that second playoff hole. Angel Cabrera actually scrambles for a par. They both missed the green on the approach, but Angel Cabrera manages to scramble, and Kenny Perry, like he showed on 17 and 18, does not. Um, and thus, we have a green jacket on Angel Cabrera's shoulders. A fairly dramatic. I don't know a ton about Chad Campbell and Kenny Perry. I know those are names. Those are people who did well on the PGA Tour. Angel Cabrera is an interesting character. I'm a little interested to dive more into him another time because I'm very curious about the fact that he's a two-time major winner, but across all other tours has one PGA Tour victory, three DP World Tour victories, and if you want to count Champions Tour, three Champions Tour victories and two other OWGR sanctioned four victories, but nonetheless two majors. I gotta wonder where that stacks up among like multi-time major winners to other victories. That's got to be up there because not many guys, you get the fluky one times, but two major victories while not building a ton else on the resume is hard to do.
I mean, the one name that comes to mind really is Matt Fitzpatrick.
But he doesn't have two though, right? Does he? No.
I mean, but for a while, it was his only win
Yes.
was
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
the U.S. Open,
Yes.
and then the RBC. So I guess he had the one PGA and then the one
Yeah.
major. But yeah, for a while, that was his like just one
Yeah,
and
I
one.
mean, yeah, and you can bring up, the guys we just talked about, the Danny Willett having none. Charles Schwartzel has one PGA Tour, but he's got a handful of DP World Tour. Yeah, I think the different the thing that like stumps me about Angel Cabrera is the two majors, right? Like, I mean, if I don't know, if Matt Fitzpatrick won another, then we'd have the conversation, I guess. But
Pay attention to
anyways.
next week's pod.
Ooh, actually, I love it. Kind of. I love it a lot. Angel Cabrera moves to Champions Tour full time in 2020, wins three times on the tour in 2025. Great season, by the way. Um, in his four starts in 2026, he's actually logged two top 10 finishes, but he has missed the cut in his last four Masters. And we can move on to the one and only Captain America parentheses, not Zach Johnson, who won in 2007. Another sneaky two-time major victor with the 2015 U.S. Open to couple with that 2007 Masters. He does have 10 PGA Tour championships to his name, along with one Champions Tour victory, which he obviously won in 2026. I think we very briefly covered that on the pod when he did it, just talking about the fact that he's one of few who win their first Champions Tour event. Um, but this is the only Masters tournament that ends with an over par winner since 1956. You can credit that to temperatures in the 40s and
Oof.
winds steadily at 30 miles an hour.
I
Excuse me,
mean,
steadily at 20 to 30 miles an hour, which sounds horrible.
I will
Uh,
ask you this. What is the lowest, and this has nothing, I mean, I guess it kind of has, but this has nothing to do with Zach Johnson.
mm,
What is the lowest temperature you will play golf in?
I have played golf. In college, the number was lower. In college, I went out there when it was like 40.
Hmm.
I'd go out there with my buddies as soon as the courses opened up. But no, like now, I mean, the wind changes everything. You could get me out
This
there
is
in
true,
40
yeah.
or 45. You could not get me out there in 40 degrees if it's blowing 20. Like there's
Yeah.
no shot because I'm already bad in the wind as a golfer. So I'm no Sepp Straka. So, I'm kind of that's not my game. So as soon as the wind picks up, I'm kind of out. But I'll play in the cold. I don't mind a little bit of cold.
Yeah.
What about you?
I, I mean, I was gonna say 55, just in the
Mm,
case of like, if I mean, it obviously depends. Like, if it's in the like, I've played golf on Christmas Eve in Chicago on like
yeah.
a 45-degree day, and I'm like, oh my God, like this is incredible. Like, let me take off a few layers just because. I guess it depends what kind of 45 it is, but to me, if I have to start, like, obviously I'll do like a pullover and like maybe a polo over the pullover, and that could be my layers. Once I have to start putting on like a jacket or something like
Yeah.
that.
I
Golf
agree.
Digest did a piece a few weeks ago about whether or not, and I didn't read it, but I did end up seeing like just some of the social media coverage. They did a piece on whether or not putting on additional layers actually impacts your swing. And I think I'm gonna go back and actually read that because I am convinced that if I have to wear like a light jacket or something like that, it totally screws me up.
You know what bothers me is the sound. Like the
Yeah.
it really, really gets me. For some reason that gets in my head. Does it actually impact my swing or am I just a bad golfer? These are questions that will go unanswered
Yeah.
forever, really.
It didn't
There's no way
impact
to
Zach
know.
Johnson.
It
That's
did not. Well, it did because he shot over par, but he beat everybody else, like we've said a lot of times. Yeah, one of only nine players to score under par on Thursday, I believe, with a one under par 71. And Justin Rose and Brett Wetterich, hopefully that's right, led the scoring at three under. The number of players under par was then cut to three after two rounds when Tim Clark and Wetterich lead the way at two under, and ZJ's second round 73 sets him at an even par heading into the weekend, obviously two back of the leaders. He got a sloppy 76 on Saturday, but guess what? It was horrific on Saturday. So don't even blame him. One person, Retief Goosen, was under par on Saturday. I believe he shot a 70. Nobody else broke par. So his 76 on that Saturday, he's still just two back. Despite that four over par score, the leaders are now at two over. Zach Johnson is at four over. And it's a fairly crowded leaderboard again. Tiger Woods sitting at three over par, just one, or sorry, yeah, within just one shot back of the lead. There are six players within two strokes of the lead. And scoring comes a bit easier on Sunday. I'm not sure if the weather turned. It must have a little bit because there were 69s to be found out there, and one of them came to Zach Johnson. Nobody in front of him broke par. Again, he entered this round two shots back of the leads. Nobody in front of him broke par. He shoots a 69 to get to that one over par number. It gives him a two-stroke victory over Tiger Woods, who, you know, you could talk a lot about the greatness of Tiger Woods, and I think the guys that No Laying Up harp on this as well. Tiger Woods lost tournaments he could have won. He's the greatest golfer probably of all time, maybe, him, Jack Nicklaus, but he was not perfect in any shape and form. He shot an even par 72 on a day where guys were shooting 69s and he ends up losing by uh to Zach Johnson, and he ends up in a crowd with Retief Goosen, who shoots a 69, and Rory Sabatini, who shoots a 69. So Zach Johnson comes away with that two-stroke victory on a very, very hard Augusta National course. It sounds like, from what I could gather, and this would be an interesting one to go back and watch too for different reasons than the 2003 one that we talked about. It sounds like the greens were rocks. Obviously, you get that when it's 40 degrees in Georgia and the winds are blowing 30 miles an hour. I can't imagine trying to hold a green. So, um, an interesting Masters in the sense that the weather played a huge role, which it doesn't always. Although the winds at Augusta are renowned to do weird things all the time, as we know on the 12th hole, nobody knows what direction it's flowing. Um, but maybe not the most interesting in terms of dramatic finishes. But it gets Zach Johnson his first major championship. His U.S. Open would come 8 years later, and he's actually having a fairly interesting 2026. I mean, he's still finding success. Like we said, he won his first Champions Tour event in 2026. His first three starts, in fact, of his Champions Tour career, he won the James Hardy Invitational, then went T3 and T2 at the Cologuard Classic and the Hogue Classic, Newport Beach. Um, yeah, he's not played particularly well at the Masters, but save last year. He had a 9-year stretch with like no good finishes, but then last year he actually was T8, which I completely forgot happened, to be
Yeah,
honest with you.
I did not know that either.
I have a brief memory of seeing his bespeckled face, those signature Zach Johnson glasses on the Sunday broadcast. But I mean, to be fair, he was not like in contention. This was not a
Right.
T8 where he might have won. But a T8's a T8 at Augusta. And in all, he has three top 10 finishes at Augusta, which includes his win in 21 starts, which is a little underwhelming. Come on, Zach, step up. But I don't know. Yeah, we like I said, we're not getting into expectations, so I'll cut myself short there.
Yeah,
But
we've talked about Zach Johnson, and I
yeah, I mean,
guess
Nick, we're
more
only
so.
like 2 hours and 15 minutes in. We got plenty of time to go through this stuff.
Yeah,
I
I
don't know why
mean,
you're trying to hustle.
no, I mean, I feel like the Ryder Cup is one of those things where, like, take Luke Donald, for example. Luke Donald, obviously he's a world number one, but in terms
hmm
of wins on the tour, he did not win as much on the PGA Tour as maybe you would have expected. Luke Donald famously has not won a major. He's one of the best players to never win a major, I think.
Yeah.
And so we take, I hesitate to use the word. I'm not going to use the word mediocre. I'm not, even though I've said it multiple times just now. But it's not a bad career. It's a great career, 100%, but it's certainly not as great as you would expect with the accolades he's had. And so to
hmm
take a career like that to now he's one of the greatest. He is the greatest writer, not even just European. He is the greatest. He's the greatest captain of all time. And so this shows just how much the Ryder Cup can truly change someone's legacy for the better. And it proves, Marco Simone also proved how it could change for the worse.
Yeah.
Zach Johnson was a two-time major champion, but at the same time, he had that terrible showing as a captain at Marco Simone, and it completely changed the narrative. All of a sudden, like, I don't want to say the random, but all of a sudden you have the guy that's, maybe just walking around, maybe T20 in an event, is all of a sudden getting a ton of hate because of the Ryder Cup. Like we saw at the WM, fans were giving him shit, and he was just
hmm
beefing with the fans. And so to me, I think it's not a fall from grace because he's obviously found his footing on the Champions Tour and he still has a lot of success, but it's really I think the Ryder Cup really defined Zach Johnson's legacy in a way that you wouldn't expect from a multiple time major winner.
Oh well, yeah, especially considering the way it was documented in full swing. I think that's tough because the whole, like we talked about, maybe a week ago, maybe earlier this week, the whole point of full swing is to reach new audiences, right? And when you're reaching new audiences and introducing them to the world of golf, and their first impression of Zach Johnson is what he did at the Ryder Cup, not the fact that, they might introduce him as a two-time major champion, but their first impression of him as a person relating to golf is really what happened at Marco Simone. And like you said, if that like the younger generations are going to remember him for that, especially those that are introduced to golf through this like YouTube golf, full swing golf drive to survive era of Netflix and YouTube kind of dominating the media culture of golf, which is a whole other topic on how we're kind of diluting some of the personality that makes this game so great, or at least reassigning that personality to YouTube golfers rather than to a lot of the guys that are actually on the PGA Tour. That is another conversation that we can have very, very lengthily. But you are 100% right that, you read the resume: two-time major champion, US Open, Masters, 10 times PGA Tour, five times Ryder Cup. Not that doesn't include his captaincy and the four times President's Cup. It's a great resume. He's got a resume to be proud of. But unfortunately, he, at least in these younger generations, is going to be remembered for the mistakes he made in Rome.
Right. And when you look at that resume, I personally don't think it was a bad pick for the
Yeah,
captaincy, honestly. Like it's I would argue like if we're going on resume alone that Keegan Bradley was a worse selection than Zach Johnson.
yeah,
But
certainly.
I think it's just the way he went about it was what defined his like. And I'm not going to put as much blame on Zach Johnson. I actually, you know what? I will drop a bit of a hot take here.
Ooh, okay.
Zach Johnson gets the
For
hate
those
that he got.
listening at our 2 hour
And if
20,
anybody is still
this is your
here,
bonus.
right. We're gonna put a little quiz question at the start of the next pod just to test if you were still here. Um, I think Zach Johnson doesn't, and you could tell me if I'm wrong about this. Zach Johnson doesn't get the hate as a Ryder Cup captain. Aside, like obviously, he would get just the standard lose. Oh, you lost the Ryder Cup. Zach Johnson doesn't get the severity of his hatred if not for Full Swing.
Oh, 100%. No, that's kind of what I was trying to say is I think, yeah, it amplified it, especially because so many like yeah, I can't really add a ton to that, honestly. I think you get a behind the scenes look that you definitely wouldn't otherwise have. And you kind of get, unfortunately, a closer eye into, I hesitate to say incompetency, but that's unfortunately the way it was at least portrayed in Full Swing, was a certain level of incompetency in the captaincy position there. And like you said, like, yeah, you don't get that access if not for Full Swing, and you
Right.
don't.
And at the end of the day, like if you want to talk, I think he got a lot of scrutiny for the Justin Thomas pick,
Yeah,
but at face value, like it just seemed like he was trying to just bank on that Justin Thomas was a major winner and that he was gonna get that version of Justin Thomas to the point where like
yeah,
when that pick was announced, I understood the pick. Like it's not
yeah.
what I would have done, but I understood it.
Hmm.
And but then you watch Full Swing, and then you see that, he was doing it just to bring his boys to Rome.
Yeah.
And to me, that's where, because like they didn't lose like they did because Zach Johnson made wrong picks. They lost like they did because that European team was a juggernaut. Same thing at Bethpage.
Yeah.
But just the behind the scenes access and seeing how Zach Johnson went about just kind of like creating this like boys club mentality, that's where I think you lose a lot of people.
Yeah, absolutely. Should we get to our last gentleman on the list here?
I mean, I'm having a pretty good time. I think we could just extend this as long as you want.
All right. It's time for Jose Maria Olazabal. We can get to finally my birth here, which is just about how old I am, even though this isn't chronological. 1999 Masters champion, shout out the 90s, and 1994 Masters champion. So two-time major champion, only Masters, four-time PGA champion outside of those majors, but spent most of his time on the DP World Tour, both before and after and between his two Masters victories, mostly really a DP World Tour, formerly European Tour player. Obviously, the 90s was the era where those were a little bit more separate. And, you also had a lot of or PGA Tour guys going over to the European Tour a little more often to play some of those events. But, anyways, seven times Ryder Cups, or seven Ryder Cup appearances from 1987 all the way up to 2006. His 1999 victory was pretty unexciting. He never left the top five. We talked about that in one of the rounds earlier. Maybe it was the was it Mike Weir? Maybe. But anyways, he never left the top five after any round and held the lead at the end of each of the final three rounds. He opened up with a 70, put him one shot back of the leaders. His Friday 66, which was the low round of the day, brought him to an outright lead heading into the weekend ahead of Scott McCarron by one stroke. And nobody really in the close chasing pack was able to take advantage of Olafable. Sorry, I was my brain's so fried. I was reading it and I forgot exactly how to pronounce it. But Olafable Saturday 73, and he maintained that one stroke lead, but now it was over Greg Norman heading into Sunday. So Olafable actually started quite cold. He
Oh,
bogeyed
is this
three
that
consecutive
Masters?
holes. Yeah, this is that. It's not
Oh.
it's not the massive Greg Norman blow up Masters, if
Oh,
that's
okay.
what
So
you're
not
referring
not
to.
that
It is
one.
not.
Okay.
It is not that one. No, it wasn't the disaster Masters for Greg Norman.
It was Fogel
Um,
that won that one, right?
yeah, that was early. It might have been like 89 or something like that, like late 80s, early 90s. I forget exactly. But this unfortunately, fortunately, whatever, was not that. Olafable starts cold, bogeys three consecutive holes, three, four, and five. Which lucky for him, Norman had also bogeyed two of those holes. So they end up at a tie at the top. Davis Love the third, who was two strokes behind to start the round, also makes two bogeys early, recovers with two birdies before the front nine comes to a close. So by the time that final group of Olafable and Norman close out their front nine, they are tied for the lead, but Davis Love has also joined them. Davis Love the third has joined them. Olafable and Norman remain deadlocked for much of the back nine there. They go two under par through their first four holes of that back nine. And Davis Love, this is kind of where he steps away. He cards just one birdie among eight pars in the back nine, ceding this tournament to a Norman and Olafable back and forth, but really it ends up just being Olafable because Norman drops off kind of after that first four of the back nine, the second nine, bogeys holes 14 and 15. Olafable pars both those holes and then rolls in a birdie on 16. That brings his lead to three over Norman and two in front of Davis Love, who is playing in the group ahead. And then pars in 17 and 18 to seal it. He didn't need to do anything crazy there. That gives Olafable his second green jacket. Like I said, this is, Norman was in the mix, but this was certainly not the storied Norman blow up that you will hear if we ever do or we might do it, but if not, you should go listen to No Laying Up's Masters Deep Dive, major deep dive series that they did covering most of the late 80s and 90s, and you'll get a good look at the Greg Norman blow up that we're talking about. But yeah, so pars on 17 and 18 steal it for Olafable. Like we said, this is his second green jacket. He won his first in 1994, which actually features a totally different story, which is more of him battling back after a 74 in the first round, which I'm curious what the highest score in an opening round at the Masters would be to result in a win. Obviously, you'd probably get something from like the 50s, or like, I think it was 54 and 56 where the Masters ends over par. So, but in recent Masters history, I have to imagine that a 74 is one of the higher opening rounds carded by an eventual champion.
Has to be,
Um,
yeah.
it must be. But a second round 67, a seven-shot improvement will get you all the way back up to T5, trailing only Larry Mize, who's at five under, Tom Lehman, who's at four under, Greg Norman again, who's at four under, and Dan Forsman, who's at four under. You got some good, like Larry Mize, Tom Lehman, Greg Norman, some good names up at the top of that leaderboard. And Olafable, like we said, trailing them at three under par. And we enter Saturday with Olafable, he equals Lehman's 69 for low round of the day to start out the weekend. Finds himself in solo second, just one stroke back from the lead. Obviously, it is Tom Lehman in the lead. And the two really battle it out on Sunday. It becomes kind of, a competition between the two of those. Lehman actually carries that slim margin to the back nine, but a bogey on 12 costs him. And then the real moment of this tournament is Olafable rolling in I believe, it was cited as a 35-foot eagle putt on the 15th to an uproaring crowd. And the tournament was really all but his at that point. And the 69 on Sunday, again, the low round of the day. I believe this was the only, maybe the Dustin Johnson Masters, actually, I believe, because Dustin Johnson had the low round of the day on Thursday, Saturday, and Sunday, if I remember right. Olazabal is the only other person, if I'm recalling correctly, who walks away with the green jacket after carding the low round of the day on both Saturday and Sunday, both rounds of 69. And
Interesting.
that's his first green jacket with a two-stroke victory. Jose Maria Olazabal, congratulations on your two Masters victories, I should say. Like I mentioned, in terms of a where are they now, he is on the Champions Tour now, but for most of his career, he was all DP World Tour all the time, barring major appearances and the spare PGA Tour event. Hence the three PGA Tour victories, which don't count his Masters wins, to 21 wins on the DP World Tour, formerly European Tour. Yeah, he has not logged a win on the Champions Tour, which is where he plays most of his golf. But again, he's not playing a lot of golf. He's playing, we're talking 10 tournaments a year, including the Masters, something around those, along those lines. And his Masters appearances have not gone swimmingly. You could say he's missed the cut in 12 of his last 17. His most recent top 10 came in 2006. Um, yeah, and in the two starts in the Champions Tour in 2026, he got a T69 finish at the Cologuard Classic, a T14 finish at the Hogue Classic Newport Beach.
There we
And
go.
Nick, that's our last champion in the field. That's our last former champion. Congratulations on the two and a
Wow.
half hour podcast.
We did it.
I had a lot of fun. It was way longer than I thought it was going to be. I was a little
Didn't you say when you
over.
started you wanted to keep this on the shorter side too?
Well, I wanted to keep this on the shorter side considering the amount of information we were going to talk about. But I mean, I thought I was being realistic when I was like, this might be an hour 15, an hour 30. And man, we covered that. You know what? All's well in love and war, which means nothing at this current moment, but my brain is fried. And that was a really fun podcast. I had a blast. I had a ton of fun doing the research, looking into this stuff. I am going to have to rewatch some of these because obviously I was barely alive in 2003 and I don't remember a couple of the ones in the mid 2000s. So worth a rewatch. Always good to revisit some of these things. Some of these guys I honestly, you know, I didn't know a ton about Angel Cabrera. I didn't know much about Jose Maria Olazabal other than the fact that they were names that are worth knowing. Even Freddie Couples, like I said, how surprised I was by the fact that he only has one major championship. It was fun to delve into his career from a master's perspective, and it would be fun to delve into his career in a more full perspective, just to kind of get an understanding of how, he's somebody that we talk about so much as like these storied figures of the 90s and early 2000s, right? Um, or I guess the 80s and the 90s for Fred Couples. I know he's got a players championship from 84, so obviously he was around well before the 90s. So it's always fun to learn about these guys and take the opportunity to look back at some Masters championships that were forgotten for me or I didn't know about in the first place. So, yeah, that's a really long winded way of saying that this might have been a really long episode, but I had a lot of fun recording it, a lot of fun making it.
Yeah, this is
And
great.
hopefully, if anybody, God, if you made it here, kudos. I mean,
You are
I
a
don't even know.
legend.
Like, we love you to death. Thank you for listening. Nick and I had a lot of fun today. We missed Kyle terribly. We will be coming at you. This, I promise, the next one will be short. I promise. We are doing a not abbreviated in content, but abbreviated in length version of this podcast for some of the uh, amateur champions that are in the field. Obviously, it's just a much shorter list, which is why, and they won't have as storied careers because they are young. We have U.S. amateur champion and runner-up Mason Howell, Jackson Harrington, British amateur champion Ethan Fang, Asia Pacific amateur champion FIFA Laupakdi, current Latin America amateur champion Matteo Pulcini, U.S. mid-am champ Brendan Holtz, and that's it. So that's going to be a lot easier to ingest, to stomach. Although Nick, I will say we might want to add in, the Japan Open champion now, Yuki Kataoka. We can talk about that another day. There are some other figures, but anyways, that'll be a much, much shorter version of this with a lot younger characters to talk about. So we really do thank anybody who listened, even to the first half of that. I mean, any of it really. But yeah, we will be coming back to you, I believe, on Sunday. This will be up on Friday. We'll have the amateurs up on Sunday, and then Next thing you know, we're recapping the Valero Texas Open and previewing the Masters on Wednesday. And oh my God, it starts in a
Oof.
week. A week from today, Nick, we are wrapping up the first round of the Masters.
This is incredible. This is going to be a great week. This is honestly, this gets me so much more excited about the Masters. I think this is the best. It's the best tournament of the year just because of the reverence it has for its past champions.
Hmm.
And so being able to go through this like this, I think was really valuable. You get to kind of appreciate some of the players in the field a little bit more. I'm a bit sad that Tiger and Phil won't be here, but this
I am
podcast would have
too.
been like maybe three
Oh my
hours.
God, it saved us so much time. It saved us so much time.
I mean, shit, let's get Kyle on the phone and like maybe he's back from his concert by now and he
He
can like
probably is.
finish this up.
Yeah, I do. I have a final parting question for you that I want to maybe delve into on Wednesday, but I want your gut check reaction answer to this question. Is it good that the Masters has no expiration on their exemption for past champions?
Yes.
Okay, I
I
agree. I think I agree.
I don't
Like this,
see
the reason I ask is the U.S. Open has 10 years. The PGA Championship doesn't need to have a lifetime exemption, but it does.
no.
The U.S. Open has 10 years, and I believe the Open Championship, it's past Open champions age 60 years or under as of the start of the Open Championship, not including winners from the last two Open champions who can be of any age. So there's some cutoff there. The Masters and the PGA are the ones with no. So, anyways, I cut you off. What was your answer to the question?
I think I can understand why the Open and the US Open, because like those are tournaments where they have a lot of open qualifiers and they have a lot
Yes,
of it's a big
that is
field.
true.
And so if you're gonna have no disrespect, if you're gonna have John Daly using his lifetime exemption at the PGA and then shooting like 20 over par, you're taking a spot away from someone that could potentially earn their way there through
Right.
recent play. That's not what Augusta is right now. That's something where it's always been a very limited field tournament because what's it like 120 something?
I believe that's right.
Yeah,
Right now, the
so
field I have listed is 89 players,
oh,
and it's
it's
going to be
even
less. It
less.
is 89. That is before only the Valero Texas Open winner and the top 15 OWGR, which should add like seven people, probably.
Okay.
It'll probably end up settling around 100.
So it's not a massive field that has massive qualifications. So I don't mind that you can, and like obviously the Champions Dinner, like you don't get moments like Bernard Langer making the cut when Bryson DeChambeau misses the cut, and
Right.
you don't get moments like last year he made the cut, right? Right? Did he make the cut, Bernard Langer?
Bernard Longer last year? That's a good question. Maybe it was him that I was thinking of when I was talking about Freddie Couples. Um, I don't believe he did make the cut, but Bernhard Longer. Yeah, it was Bernhard Longer who I was thinking of. He missed the cut on the number last year. He must have
Right.
had a putt
Okay.
on the 36th, so went 36th hole to make the cut.
But so you have that final send-off moment where he is able to go off on his own terms. It's his last Masters that he's playing in, and he's able to go off on his own terms and just get honored in that way. To me, and like the starters, so Jack Nicklaus, Tom
Hmm.
Watson, Gary Player. Say what you want about Gary Player, but
Yeah,
there was the reverence they have for their champions is so great that they don't need an expiration on it.
I agree. I think that's a great take. No notes. I don't need to make a whole conversation out of this because it is past 11 p.m., which means it is this old man's bedtime.
My computer is
Um,
about to die.
Perfect timing. Let's cut it then. Thank you all for listening so much. We will be back with you on Sunday with the amateurs and then again on Monday with the Valero Texas Open recap. That's going to do it for us tonight. Again, thank you all so much for listening.